case of Judas Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nice meeting you. Yeah. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again. Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you see. So that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. You know, that's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is that? So who's a hustler?
Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
windows
sleep inside.
Up near the ceiling.
Yes.
And if you walk that midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyang.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes?
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay you for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom? I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's that morning and there's traffic everywhere, including here. A little bit of traffic starting to build up on the Thika Superhighway. That looks like it's going to be pretty busy. And we're also seeing some stuff coming out of Westlands. All right, where are you this morning? Are you on the Northern Bypass? You'll be all right getting into the city. We're also seeing a little bit of it here and there on Jogo Road as you then get towards Landis and then out towards the city. Let's keep an eye on things and see how Thursday pans out. Talk to us on Spice FM, KE on Twitter, and keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
14 minutes after what? 6. Mambo ndu?
Mambo poa. Vipi?
Vipi yangu? We?
Ni hivyo.
Leo
ikuwa melene.
Leo ni ile siku.
Telling you.
Leo ni ile siku. City? Yes, please. It's Monday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Are you excited about Monday?
Totally. Monday is a good day, man. Everything begins on Monday, including the week, which really begins on Sunday, but it also begins on Monday.
But who's counting?
What's happening?
No, I'm saying who's counting about, when it begins and all of those
things. Yes. Life is good?
Life is good.
Life is good. Na admire paketi ya njugu hapa tumepewa na Ednah.
Wewe naangalia.
Wewe naangalia.
Njugu paketi mzima. This is njugu. Aleta paketi mzima. Kasema sasa kupatia njugu. Nakula. Sasa. Ednah, thank you.
Ednah, thank you.
Sijui tufungue moja tukule alafu tumalize hivyo polepole by the time the show is over.
What's that thing you used to tell us ati dawa ilikuwa ina kulwa kama jugu
moja.
Andila.
Thank you very much.
Andila. Kula moja kama jugu. Nasemaga ati when you're playing somebody unamkulia kwa mfuko kama njugu. You have njugus and you put them in the pocket. So you just remove from the pocket and
one.
The others are still there.
Inside. Oh, got it. I got it.
So you treat some people.
I got it.
Unamkulia kwa mfuko kama njugu karaga. Otherwise, is City uko sawa wewe?
Mimi niko mzima kaka, nashukuru bwana.
City aliingia leo akibounce.
Na jana je? Na juzi je?
Hii wiki ni bounce.
Wajua, nakwambia bwana, Monday ikianza fiti, wiki nzima
inaenda sawa.
Inaelekea sawa, marry daddy bam. Yoyote.
Mambo inaenda poa.
Yes, so it's very important that you start the week on the bounce.
Very good. Today we are going to have people who are gray-haired, all of them. 3 gray-haired gentlemen joining you in the studio.
Grey hair, as in, it's fashionable also. Some fairly young people who have grey hair.
True.
Is it that variety of young men who've decided to fashion their hair to grey, or are they people?
These ones look like they're people who
have eaten salt.
Yes. The first one is Professor Ngure Wamochofi, who is a consultant and a retired associate professor. Retired associate professor. He will be joining us to talk about corruption. Why most leaders are dancing to the tune of corruption, according to Professor Ngure. We'll hear him at 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock, the Africa Climate Summit is happening next month.
It is.
Right? In Nairobi.
It is.
Kenya is hosting it.
Right.
At the KICC. The CEO of that climate summit is called Joseph Nganga. He will be joining us at 8 a.m. to talk about how Kenya is spearheading this Africa Climate Talks 2023. That is at 8 a.m. At 9 o'clock, we have a gentleman called Andrew Amadi. Andrew is the CEO of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association of Kenya. Kenya Renewable Energy Association. In short, KEREA. He's the CEO of KEREA. The association is looking at our power consumption, our power generation, our demand, and everything around it. And they're saying, you know what, the way things are going, next year, Kenya, South Africa, same was up, power rationing.
Load shedding.
Imagine.
Why?
Now that's what we want him to come and tell us. He'll be here at 9 a.m. Why Kenya could face power rationing next year.
You know, we've had it before.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. And it's what heralded these independent power producers. Huh?
Yes. And since then, we haven't had it.
No, since then, we haven't had it at all.
So now, why would we have it this time?
Exactly. And the independent power producers are still making
And
it.
we're going to have El Nino later this year.
Lots
Plenty,
and
yeah,
lots and lots. It's this year, just towards the end of the...
And El Nino comes with wind, so...
Wind,
Sukuma hiyo kitu.
rain.
Water.
Surely.
Essentially, inakuja na weather yote.
Kila kitu. So why? Anyway, that is what Kerea will be coming to tell us at what time? 9 a.m. today. We're live streaming the show. No, let's do like that.
All right.
About the weather and everything else.
Sawa.
Is the live stream up?
It is.
Hiya, Ednah, thank you. It's up on YouTube and Facebook. If you're online, let us know where you're tuned in from. Let's do like that shortly.
Cloudy conditions this morning at 14 in Nairobi, highs of 25 and lows of 13. 12 will be the low in a clear Nakuru, going to highs of 28. 24 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 13, down to lows of 12. And 12 will also be the low in Eldoret, where it's currently clear at 13. It'll go to highs of 26. Looking into a clear Mombasa at 22, highs of 30. And we'll see highs of 30 as well in a mostly clear Malindi at 24. It's 20 and clear in Kisumu, highs of 31 and lows of 19. And we'll see highs of 31 in a clear Kakamega at 17. Kampala is mostly clear this morning at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 18, and we'll see lows of 23 in a clear Dar es Salaam at 23, going to highs of 29. It's 9 degrees and clear conditions in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 29 in a clear Lagos at 26. It's 23 and mostly cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 29 and lows of 22. It's a rainy Thursday afternoon in Beijing at 21, highs of 25 and lows of 18, and it's cloudy in Paris, a chance of thunderstorms early this morning, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 25 in a clear London at 18. It's 21 and mostly clear in New York Wednesday night, coming into Thursday, highs of 26 and lows of 19.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Hello to everybody who's online. Who's that?
It all starts with Sir George Gashoiri and says, good morning from Manchester. Alex says, Oparanya in, Waitito free. Okay. Alex, good morning from
Even the
Doha.
Kuwenda.
James Mukabana says, good morning, tuned in from Udhiro, looking forward to today's justice conversation. Not today, but well, still justice somehow. Good morning, we'll sit back and enjoy. James Mwangi joins us this morning. Mabur Panchol is tuned in from Regina in Saskatchewan in Canada. Desmond Otis says, good morning, crew. Listening from Uhanya Beach in Siaya County. And Eden Springs SDA Church, yani the whole church, is tuned in this morning and says, good morning, good people. The weekend is around the corner and I'm happy while CT is not. CT, you're not happy that the weekend
Can
is
they
around
sing
the corner?
for us one number?
Oh, no. I'm happy. Just that Monday, I'm happier.
Oh, voila.
Yeah.
You want the SDA Church to sing
The
for us one
SDA
number?
Church of Eden where?
Eden Springs
Springs.
SDA
Let me
Church.
tell you.
Watoe wimbo moja tusikie.
Moja tu ile ya kukupeleka mlangoni wa mbinguni. Yes, until you feel it is here.
We are marching in the light of God. We are marching in the light of God.
Now them, they don't sing those ones.
Okay. New day, new show. Habari CT, Ndu and Eric. Ednah, umesalimiwa sana.
Tuko sawa.
Bonnie Lake says Kenyans are awesome, aren't they? When leaders are stealing and eating their loot, they're never with us. When the axe falls, they summon us. Good morning. Robert Mbogo says good morning. Good morning, CT Ndu Eric. Good job. Good morning to you, Alois. Ruth Karenge is joining from Minneapolis, Minnesota. She says, good morning, Kanairo. It's humid hot in my world. Sorry.
Yeah.
James Sekento says he's tuning in from Kerara Pond. Monis Jani says good morning from Singapore. Jimmy Wakesa is tuned in this morning. Always a pleasure to tune in. Asante sana. Trevor's also tuned in en route to Sekenani. Where's Sekenani?
Haujui Sekenani?
Sijui.
Ala.
Sekenani
Gate pale Masai Mara. Unaona mahali Ruto alipiga ile
I've
picha?
actually been there.
Yeah.
Now I can see it. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Hey.
Continue.
Good morning from Houston City. CT, we got business to do. This is a guy called Sam saying you have business with him. Oh yeah, call Sam.
Where is he calling from?
Houston City.
Houston City.
Yes.
In Texas State.
You agree?
Yeah, do you?
There's
You have
business.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
sir.
Bar El Ghazal is where the Dawn is tuned in from this morning, and greetings from Brisbane, Australia. Ebu tuone Ednah. Ednah, unataka kuonwa. Mama, how do you say it?
Unataka kwako. Matakwa yao ya wasikilizaji ni kukuona.
Willis Koyi ndio huyu anataka kuona yeye Ednah.
Kuona wewe yeye.
Si ufanye hivyo. Haya, sawa ndio hao.
Everybody, karibuni sana. Let's get to Ouagadougou.
Yes, let us go to Ouagadougou. Ants surround.
Who's the president of that country?
Bro.
Kuleta stress asubuhi bana.
No, it is a valid question. You know, the moment you have a junta, okay, what you do, you have a council, and you have a leader of the council. The leader of the council is then we can refer to as El Presidente. Sudan has something similar, and now Niger have something similar. There'll be leader, okay? So leader you can call
Presidente.
Niger alisema ECOWAS, you want to play with us? You know what we'll do?
We'll
you
play.
storm us in Niamey. We will go to Abuja and install the proper winner of the election.
Bas.
We know who it was. It's just that we are quiet, but we know.
Some Nigerians
so you play
were
with
happy.
us. Deal with you in Abuja. Move on.
These discussions are lively one, isn't
like
it? These aren't ramblings, are they?
No, please.
All right. No, not the. There's no the here. Okay. Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Yes.
The elephant's ants, Ama.
You listen to the proverb again. You, Eric. Ants surround the dying elephant. Okay, now ask your question again.
The elephant's ants. It's a family gathering.
Where are the uncles?
Okay, let me believe ile ant.
Ile ant.
Ant. Siafu ile ant.
Ant.
Yes. Sio auntie. Ant.
Okay.
Right.
Headlines.
Okay, on the front page of the Standard today, boom, 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 Oparanya in a fix over 1.3 billion shillings graft probe. Where? Raided and grilled. Sounds like Nyama Choma, but okay. Former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya yesterday spent hours at the anti-corruption offices over alleged embezzlement of 1.3 billion shillings in the county, even as commission agents raided his rural and Nairobi homes, triggering protests from Azimio. Okay. Hey, the Standard is nice today. Good news as police officers get pay rise. Yay! Ruto and Raila teams agree on agenda items for talks, finally. And then Chirchir is saying, I too am a victim. You guys are saying they're victims. I'm a victim as well.
And who's Chirchir?
She's the one who they said is scamming people for jobs in the outside.
Oh, the one in the big headline in the Nation yesterday.
Yes. So it's called Unmasking the Untouchable Chirchir. That's the story. And then Ababu Namwamba says, I will not quit. And this one he has vowed. Not just saying, he's vowed. Me, quit. Not in the same WhatsApp group. It ain't happening. So those of you who are looking for my quit notice, keep waiting.
He needs to perhaps be given a little hint as to the history of such statements.
Right.
There was one who even said over his dead body. Meaning,
Ababu was in parliament watching the guy.
Happened?
Yes. This is just a reminder. The guy didn't die, but the
something did.
The job died.
On the front page of The Nation, The War Within is what the headline is. Signs of a looming cabinet reshuffle or a storm in a teacup. It's the question of 4 of your CSs here and the questions that are being asked of them. After President Ruto recently read the Rights Act to his appointees, questioning their competence, Kenya Kwanza lawmakers have stepped up attacks on cabinet secretaries who find themselves increasingly on the defensive amid questions about their future. We have Sports and Youth CS Ababu Namwamba there. We also have Florence Bore right there, of whom questions are being asked. We have Susan Nahumicha, who also of questions are being asked, as well as Foreign Affairs CS Dr. Alfred Mutua. Questions are being asked. All right. There's also the story carried here of Oparanya grilled for 6 hours. Now, TikTok is a social media platform. Now, the president is saying he's going to have a talk with the tech firm's boss. Yani, I'm going to give him a call because the content that is coming out of this particular platform is explicit and we're not really, for it. So he says, I'm going to give him a call. Let's see what we're going to do. Junior police officers get 1,000 shillings pay rise as their bosses pocket 11,000 shillings in pay rises. Sawa
basi.
On the back page of The Nation, it's that one about the pay rises.
The pay rises?
Yeah.
The Business Daily. States to legalize phone email tapping in dirty cash fight. Telephone calls and emails of Kenyans suspected to be dealing in money laundering and terrorism financing will be tapped if lawmakers approve changes to a bill seeking to escalate the fight against terrorism and dirty money deals in the country. And they need a law. So they've been doing it. Ama they haven't. Ama it's chini ya maji. The Parliamentary Committee on Finance proposed the changes to the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism Financing Laws Amendment Bill 2023 yesterday, seeking to legalize the bugging of suspects' private communication. The proposal, if adopted by the House, will give the state security machinery unfettered access to private communications of suspects in money laundering and terrorism financing. Oh, so now the tapping that they've been doing, now they can take it to court. Okay.
Before it was not admissible in court.
Okay. The other big headline in the Business Daily today, competition watchdog shocks steel industry tycoons with record fines. Billionaire businessman Narendra Guru Raval is among Kenyan tycoons and household names in the lucrative steel industry, whose companies have been slapped with a record 338 million shilling fines by the competition watchdog for engaging in cartel-like behavior. This is the highest penalty that the Competition Authority of Kenya has ever imposed for anti-competitive behavior, with the last being 66 million against 4 paint manufacturers 2 years ago. These 9 companies have been accused of price fixing and restriction of output, leading to an inflation of their markup by at least 30%. Guy! Okay, so breakdown of penalties and the director and owner or CEO. Company, corrugated steel, amount of penalty 86 million. Company, Tononoka Rolling Mills, the CEO or owner Dharmesh Savla, amount 62 million. Devki Steel Mills of Narendra Raval, 46 million. Doshi and Hardware, Shumani, Ajay Doshi is the owner of this company. Amount 41 million.
That's the fine, huh?
Yes.
Which he must pay.
Jumbo Steel Mills, the owner is Indravadan Patel. Fine 33 million. Accurate Steel Mills, whose owner is Avraj Bachu, 26 million. Nail and Steel Products, Nilkamal Shah, 22 million. Brolo Kenya, Ketan Lelichandra, 9 million. Blue Nile Wire Products, Courtney Rao, 9 million. Total, 338 millions.
Scandal.
Big ile. Big ile, bana. City.
What I'm looking forward to is, I'm wondering whether this thing will actually be challenged in court. Huh? Yeah, because, meaning they are being fined for behavior, suspected behavior. Is that not so? Or is it confirmed behavior?
Cartel-like behavior. Basically, what they are being told is what they have done. They are restricting output, causing inflation, therefore raising the price of the product, and therefore making more money.
How come they don't slap such things on banks?
Which banks?
All these big
Blood
banks.
banks.
Yes.
Spam banks.
Yes.
Commercial banks.
When you
have to be clear, bana.
Because this cartel-like behavior, okay, The other day we had this discussion about, well, no, we didn't. The discussion was brought to our attention of the state suggesting that, this 1 million shilling, not good, make it 2 billion. Bank said no. Fine, they have a reason. Maybe it's some international financial regulation thingy-majig. Fine, we get that one. But banks are a cartel. Any organization, people who have similar interests, trade in the same thing, will have an association. If they collude to do things together, they then become a cartel. Now, if those things are beneficial to the country, we don't really call them a cartel. We call them a union, we call them Federation of Kenya Employers, we call them such nice names. But when now it is working against the interests of the public, then it is a cartel. Okay? Now, these steel guys aren't the only ones who are pulling these things. No.
Competition Authority wako macho.
Waendelee kuwa macho because watu kama hao wenye tabia ambazo
mkono wa serikali
ni mrefu. Sheria naye kufuatilizia mambo hayo ina
mbele na nyuma.
Ina mwelekeo wa kobe.
Bas. Pole pole. Mwendo wa aste. Pole pole is not aste. Anyway, City.
Yes, please.
Do like that with a star. Then we take the break.
Yes.
Man,
there is a lovely picture here. Lovely.
Aww.
Yes.
Of children's.
Top right, children's, yes. Top right hand corner until green. Oparanya probe. EACC strikes in the heart of Raila's Orange Party. Does it really? Okay. Then, pay increase. 1,255 to 9,439 more. When police officers will get the new salary review. This is not enough. New headache. Why more children could be having vaccine if deprived of polio? Stories, some have already died as a result of not having been vaccinated on time. Then the headline, bang, yani headline kabisa. Audit. KPLC installed cables and meters on empty land where owners were yet to build.
Oh, nice. Okay.
No, it's looking ahead.
They installed meters.
Yes. When you say...
Where? On a tree? I mean,
on a pole, a random pole in the middle of nowhere.
No. Usually, you can even install it on the ground. You see, when plots are being sold and you're told you're fully serviced, this is it. This is it. Even meter eco. Okay? Why Uhuru's 63 billion last mile project failed? Poor households unable to buy tokens opted not to use power, putting infrastructure to waste. Okay? All right. Now, the picture is telling you about talent galore at music festival. Finalists put on show. There are these delightful children who, lovely picture, lovely. What is it about children that when you see a picture of children, you smile to yourself?
I know. It's the innocence of it, I guess.
Yes. Right. You're here. Okay. Children, thank you very much for that brief interlude. Now, let's get on with serious business.
And do. Serious business is traffic.
Sawa.
Yeah.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, this morning, not seeing too much of it. The map has decided to go berserk, but okay. Where are we? We're getting closer and closer into the city, and there we are. Looking at a little bit of traffic opening up in certain parts of the city. Looking on the thicker superhighway, it doesn't look too bad, actually, right now, coming into the CBD. And you're fine on Gong Road, just looked at that. As you're coming then in from Jogo Road and then getting towards Landis, also not too busy. Landis Road at this time, getting towards Kamkunji, usually has parked up, but nothing right now. Off on the Makadara train station, it's heavy. It's bumper to bumper as you're trying to get out on Jogo Road through towards the City Stadium roundabout. If you're on North Airport Road, going out towards Cabanas, coming in from Cabanas rather, and then going out towards the Eastern Bypass, you'll be able to do that without too much of a hiccup. The Eastern Bypass looking pretty good as well. And if you're coming out of Westlands, you're all right too. Nothing coming out of Kitisuru, that whole Limuru Road area, at least not for now. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how Thursday pans out. Talk to us, Spice FM, KE on it.
Spice up your life.
Na mwamba kwenye kinywa cha mamba. What does that mean?
Kinywa
ni mdomo. Mamba.
Mamba is crocodile.
Yes, kinywa.
So now, Na mwamba kwenye kinywa cha mamba.
Jaws.
He's in the jaws of the crocodile.
Really?
Ah, voila. Okay.
Na mwamba kwenye kinywa cha mamba.
But something seems to be happening here. Maybe, anyway, go on. I don't know. Something seems to be... By the time you have members of your own political party or affiliation coming after you hammer and tongs.
Where? And then everybody, you know? And then it's from your own people.
Yeah. This one.
There's something that's going on. Either there's an engineered silent reshuffle that's being pushed or something. In fact, let's just start with this story then. The Nation has looked at this. Attacks on CSs points to war within the Ruto government. Some of the president's MPs have become the most vocal critics of CSs, challenging them on their performance amid claims that this may be in preparation for a cabinet reshuffle. Multiple interviews with some of Kenya Kwanza MPs revealed a split, a majority insisting they were following President Ruto's instructions to hold the CSs accountable in delivering to the people. Others claiming political witch hunting and personal interests could be at the center of the attacks. Youth Affairs CS Ababu yesterday became the latest to come under heavy criticism over those allegations. A majority of MPs ganged up against Namwamba, forcing him to withdraw and apologize over a letter that he had written to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Wetangula, and Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, and Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei of using hearsay in their criticism of his ministry. Florence Bore is the Cabinet Secretary for Labour. Alpha Mutua, CS for Foreign Affairs. Susan Nakumi, Justice. Health. Elido Walo.
ICT.
Kindiki Kithure.
Interior.
And some of these CSs who have found themselves in the crosshairs of Kenya Kwanza MPs over issues under their docket. Some of them have found themselves on the receiving end for failing to turn up to answer questions from senators and MPs. So it's a whole story here looking at Kwani. What's going on? What's going on? Well, it's a looking situation.
It is a wait and see, look and see kind of thing. Other people are being asked questions. The EACC has been busy. Now, by the time the EACC pounces, they've done months and months of work. So we've been told, isn't it? They're not going to wake up one morning and stick a finger in the air and say, okay, where shall we go today? Now, the where shall we go today landed at the foothills of one Wycliffe Oparanya's homes and offices. Former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya yesterday spent hours at the anti-corruption offices over alleged embezzlement of 1.3 billion shillings in the county, even as commission agents raided his rural and Nairobi homes, triggering protests from Azimio. Surprise, surprise. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Deputy Chief Executive Officer Abdi Mohammed said Oparanya recorded a statement on the ongoing investigation. The commission also raided the ODM deputy party leaders' rural and Nairobi homes. Commission conducted a successful search on various targets as part of an ongoing investigation into allegations of embezzlement of public funds amounting to over 1.3 billion shillings from Kakamega County during the reign of former Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, and where it was that public funds were unlawfully acquired through proxies and associates. So, after hours at the Integrity Center in Nairobi, the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition leader emerged from the EACC's revolving doors at about 6:30 p.m. The former governor, however, said his presence at the EACC was a follow-up to his mobile phone, which EACC had allegedly taken. So he was just asking,
So he had gone there to pick his phone?
So they were looking for it for 8 hours. It's okay. He said the investigators questioned him about his relationship with Azimio leader Raila Odinga, if he possessed any guns and some county documents. And so, nothing big. You guys are just, But Azimio protested his treatment, threatening to walk out of the talks with the Kenya Kwanza. You disturb our guy, we're also not talking to you. The leaders went on to the EACC offices in solidarity. They accused President William Ruto's government of using the agency to harass its principals. And according to Oparanya, now listen to this, please, and see if you can create some kind of logic. If this happens, and I am one of the principals of Azimio, then obviously it'll affect the talks. Because even Raila was calling everybody out there. Okay. That's why I said, let me read it so you can understand. Shall I read it again?
Ebu, connect the dots.
Even me, I'm trying
what
to
does Raila... Oh, is it about the phone calls? What is it?
If you guys...
If you can come for me...
You want to come for me. And I'm
talks.
one of the principals. And then those talks cannot happen. Because,
So, are they suggesting that the ethics and anti-corruption cannot question you because you happen to be a leader in a political party?
Exactly. That is it.
Really?
Yes, that's what he's saying.
No, this is the law.
Why are you disturbing me? And you on a national level, these talks are going on about how the country will run moving forward. And I am one of the main guys inside.
We get that.
Then you're calling me to question me.
Yeah, but we get it.
Why?
We get it. You were in charge of a county. Issues arose. Surely, should the state agencies stop doing what they're doing because talks are going on? The country is moving and running. If there's an issue that someone should respond to, then they should respond to it. Or are they saying that the timing is inconvenient?
Yeah, they should wait until the talks are over, or they should have started before.
No one is that important.
Let me tell you what else. Kioni, who said, how do you dialogue when people are being harassed? As in now, my whole everything will be destabilized.
No.
And then you want us to have talks about how the country will run.
No.
It gets better. NAC party leader Martha Karua also accused President Ruto's administration of driving the country back to a dictatorial regime. This is not a character of people who follow the law. Let them not play cat and mouse. Edwin Sifuna called the EACC's probe a political witch hunt and plot by Ruto to intimidate those opposed to his leadership, especially in the Western region. If you want to get the support of Western people, talk to them. Don't try to get the support of Western people by arresting their leaders. Come on.
If there's something...
There are very many things that are happening here.
Yes.
Quite, it's layered, this whole thing.
Very many things. So number one, there is the talks. Number two, there is the president's planned visit to Western.
Yes.
And you see, there have been headlines. Yesterday, there was a headline about disquiet among Western leaders about the president's visit. Today, I've seen one written by Dr. Barak Muluka, again about the president's intended visit to Western. And so now Oparanya is from Western.
Yes, he is. Immediate former governor of Kakamega County.
Now we are connecting all those things and saying...
if there's something that ODM knows, then they should tell us. This is conjecture. The timing may seem awful, but how many other things, against this backdrop of so-called witch hunting, there are attacks on...
and then look, so you're attacking Western leaders, Ababu Namwamba, Nahumicha being summoned, Nani being taken to EACC. What's happening?
If you want to talk to us, don't go through the corners. Just talk to us directly, which is essentially what Edwin Sifuna is saying. So all these things that you people are trying to do, you're trying to get our attention. We can see.
So Alfred Mutua is also from Western Kenya.
Those are
just collateral periphery. Yeah. So
the attack here is sustained.
It's Western.
Laser focused.
They may very well have a point. But you cannot say that if the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission are doing their work, that they're necessarily witch hunting. When they have summoned other people in the past, were they witch hunting? I mean, this story of witch hunting...
It all depends on what side you're on, my friend.
Well, I understand that very well. But if there were issues and there were anomalies, and there were anomalies, look, the Auditor General reports these things. It is not as though the Ethics and Anti-Corruption are the ones who come out and say, this is what we're seeing. They take the Auditor General's report and they say, these things were not represented clearly. Please come. They've come and explained on many occasions. They're saying, please come and shed light on these things for us. Now, when you're asked to shed light, that is witch hunting.
Yeah.
Or is it that we're talking about the bad old days? Okay, so we are saying that when someone is in a position of leadership or has been, they shouldn't be subject to matters of the law. Is that what we're saying?
I think if they had waited and said, all right, so he's been summoned, let's see what comes out of it. And then he comes out and they say, you see, you did not even question him about anything regarding his time in office or proper corruption, then clearly there's a witch hunt. And you produce evidence, like you said.
Yes.
Support what you're saying. Otherwise, this is coming from people who claim to be champions of the anti-corruption fight.
And then when it
now when it comes to them, they say, "Oh no, this is a witch hunt."
These statements, no. I have difficulties with these issues. If there is something they know, and something we don't know, then come out and say it
directly.
Just say it directly. This and this happened. We know this and this happened. We have evidence. It is this. That's why we're calling it this. Then one will have no option but to say, these people do have a point. Yes. Let's give them a hearing. But simply because someone has been summoned, he was not arrested. People get summoned all the time. Governors get summoned all the time.
But now they're even coming to raid his homes.
Both
in Madaraugani.
Both homes.
If indeed the shoe was on the other foot, and ODM and Azimio were in power, and something similar happened, because this is the way I would like to look at it always, and say it is someone, a strong, a known figure within the Kenya Kwanza brigade.
Former MP for Madeira. That time he would be the former MP for Madeira.
Yes.
What?
So
would be saying the same thing.
Yes, we would.
The people in Kenya Kwanza would be saying the same thing. Walianza zamani, wanaendelea.
Yes, hawajawacha.
Yes.
Kwani wanatuonea? Ni sisi tu ndio tuko na shida. You see, it's a narrative that anyone who assumes a position of authority and leadership in this country have. It's like we are above the law. How dare you? That's really what we're being told.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yep. Anything about accountability, because it's the same thing even with the way we are framing this conversation about Ababu Namwamba being summoned by members of parliament to answer questions.
Yes.
It's accountability, people.
Yes.
If we actually just look at it and say, let's just say that Kimani Ichung'wah had this moment and he said,
this bee in his bonnet, yes.
Yes. Let us actually now do our job. Let us make sure that ministers are doing what their job is. We as parliament must hold the executive to account.
Yes.
And that is why it doesn't matter whether he belongs to my party. It doesn't matter whether I am Kenya Kwanza leader. A minister must answer. Let's even look at it that way. Then it should be a very good thing. But now, because we're not used to these things, we're like, aye.
And then they're introducing something else here, that even though we have a situation where we are saying that we have a majority and a minority, and somehow when it comes to somebody from your neck of the woods being questioned, he is now your person. The issue of party affiliation is forgotten completely. So what are you telling us exactly?
Another story of witch hunt, political witch hunt. First Choice Recruitment and Consultancy Agency Director Judy Chepchirchir is claiming she's a victim of political witch hunt and business rivalry. The 36-year-old, who is at the center of an alleged dubious overseas jobs scandal, has pointed an accusing finger at politicians from the Rift Valley, whom she could not name. She says they're behind her tribulations. She says she's been in business since 2018. That's a long time. And her agency has been able to find work for over 7,000 people in Qatar, Dubai, Poland, and the UK. However, all hell broke loose after the agency failed to send all the 2,011 applicants who had been called up to work in Qatar during the World Cup last year. She says the workers who were going for the short-term contracts paid 10,000 non-refundable medical and registration fee and some further 30,000 service charge. She claims the agency was able to deploy 827 people to Qatar without providing evidence to work between 2 months and 4 months. However, Ms. Chepchirchir claims that the remaining 1,184 did not make it because of a sudden influx of people going to Qatar, making it difficult to get documentation in time, with some not meeting the client's requirements, such as being medically unfit. Well, the requirement was not to be medically unfit. The requirement was to be medically fit.
And they happen to be unfit.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
She said those who did not make it had the option to change their status to a 2-year contract or cancel the contract, then seek a refund. Now, if you don't do all those things, how am I refunding you? You apply for it. Consequently, 600 people opted to change their statuses to 2-year contracts for between 50K and 150 Gs instead of short-term contracts, while another 106 surrendered their positions to their relatives. So now, she says, I blame misinformation on certain politicians and business rivals not happy with what we are doing. I don't know why they are fighting me. Politicians have varied interests, and so when their interests are not met, you become an enemy. I cannot tell the people who are fighting me, but I know they are doing so because they think I want to go into politics, which is not the case. We are trying to find out who's behind this. Just saying, now, people have seen I have money. The next thing after I have money is politics. Now I want to tell them me I'm not getting into politics. Please stop fighting me. Wamenianza kuniogopa.
Eric, let me ask you, as we're getting into this hour, let me just ask the question. We're supposed to be recruiting people for armed forces. Have we recruited them yet?
KDF?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've recruited.
Has it started?
No. It hasn't started, but it's supposed to come.
All right.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see is how the 47 counties are represented in this recruitment. See, it's National Army, Armed Forces.
Yes.
For Kenya.
Yeah, yes, I'd like. Amidst all this discussion, somehow our politicians have this talent for always engaging us in topics that don't really help the Mwananchi. Not really. You have a national recruitment that is about to take place, isn't it? Do you hear any conversations about it? How are you guys going to do it? We know how it's been done in the past, but every time it's done, there are always complaints and complaints and complaints and complaints. Oh, this community got this. Oh, this community got this. Oh, these guys have put aside a certain number for this community. Now, the very people who are complaining, they complain after the fact. It hasn't taken place yet. You don't hear anybody raising a voice. Then when the recruitment has taken place, man, you'll hear some really genuinely loud noises.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. That is something we have to look into, actually, and have a discussion about. I think is important because it's a big deal here. And then say, okay, look, let there be adequate representation and equal and equitable representation for the forces across the country. And then nobody will have to reserve the right to complain. Now, the president is going to have a conversation with the head of TikTok over content moderation. All right? Did you know TikTok?
Yes, I know TikTok.
You know TikTok?
It has relatives.
It has relatives.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
What's up?
Those, okay, got it. They're all in the social media family. What is up?
Yes, Ibrahim Erasmus.
Ibrahim. Okay. President William Ruto has waded into the the controversy surrounding an attempt by a petitioner to ban popular social media app TikTok over claims that it is contributing to the erosion of cultural and religious morals. Speaking when he hosted the 95th Kenya Music Festival Winners Concert at State Lodge, that was beautiful to see, in Nakuru, the president said that he plans to hold talks with TikTok's boss to agree on ways to moderate content on the platform. Today, I will have a discussion with the CEO of TikTok so that we can agree on modalities of moderating content on the platform. I know we have had issues with TikTok in the recent past, but I promise to resolve the matter, he said. Mr. Bob Ndolo, the managing director of Bridget Connect Consultancy, has called on members of parliament to ban the use of TikTok in the country in his petition to the National Assembly. He says that while the use of the app has gained popularity amongst the country's youth, the content shared on the platform is inappropriate, promoting violence, explicit sexual content, hate speech, vulgar language, and offensive behavior, which poses a threat to cultural and religious values. So it's a conversation. So President said, okay, no hala. I will do what? I call them tomorrow. We have a discussion. We see what to do. Don't worry. I got it. I got you.
So what is he going to tell the TikTok guy?
TikTok, listen here. This is Kenya. And we in Kenya have moral standards.
And religious values.
Now you are not promoting those things. What you're promoting are the other things which we don't want you to promote. Have you heard? Tuko pamoja? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Then TikTok will say, yes, sir.
Tumeelewana. Alafu tutaamka
asubuhi tuendelee. TikTok guy will say, it is your people who are creating content.
Yeah, your people are creating the content. I've just given them a platform.
Which people are you telling me about?
Kenyans. Nani. Are those not Kenyans?
TikTok, it was me who was talking to you.
But now,
TikTok,
Mr. President,
sir, I cannot talk back to me when I've allowed you to speak to me.
Sorry, please, Mr. President.
And you are in Kenya, just so that you understand.
Mr. President, I provide a global platform. I cannot control people and where they come from.
Then why do you have it if you can't control it?
But these people that you complain about, where are they?
I'm president of Kenya. Do you see how I'm managing things?
They are in Kenya, sir. Perhaps you should speak to them, your people.
TikTok. You are going to behave yourself for as long as you're in this country.
Yes.
TikTok.
Yes. As the clock goes, TikTok.
TikTok.
Tiki hapa.
TikTok to TikTok up.
But the president has a point, because if the regulators aren't doing what they're supposed to do, the president has the right to weigh in.
Sindo?
No.
Because they took it to the National Assembly.
He has to raise it and
did
say,
a bit
guys,
of a dance.
Yes.
How bad is it?
Come on. How bad is what?
Is this thing that we're talking about the bad content on TikTok? I mean, because we are actually narrowing it down and saying TikTok, horrible content.
Is it only on TikTok though?
No.
And who are the people who are producing this content, for crying out loud? Where does it go?
They're Kenyans, actually.
Exactly.
But other people contribute also, you know.
But there's now moderation. So basically,
yes.
And I'm sure TikTok would have the same kind of community guidelines as the others.
Sure.
Similar, right?
Yeah.
Like there's content you cannot post here. You can't post violence. You cannot promote.
And it's also guarded.
Right.
You can choose to watch or not.
But more importantly, this nonsense that the president
it's
has
a going
highlighted,
live thing.
In the country where TikTok came from, you cannot, you can't even dare.
Can't even think about
Don't
it.
even think about
TikTok is used as an educational tool. App.
Maybe that's what the same thing they're doing.
Yeah.
In Kenya.
Where?
Oh, shut up. Stop it.
Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asset. Finally, the Technical Committee for Bipartisan Talks between the government and the opposition has agreed on 5 points that will be discussed by the committee conducting the negotiations: the cost of living, the review of the results of the 2022 general election, the creation of the constitution of IEBC commissioners, the creation of the office of the leader of the opposition are among the main things that Kenya Kwanza and Azimio have agreed to prioritize. The technical committee that started its meetings Tuesday this week to evaluate the points that will be presented to the negotiation team is expected to complete its activities today. In addition, it will present them to the committee led by Kalonzo Musyoka of Azimio and Kimani Ichung'wah of Kenya Kwanza before negotiations officially begin. Earlier this week, Kimani Ichung'wah said the statement to politicians of all parties regarding the talks will not disrupt the plans of the committee. The Kalonzo and Ichung'wah-led committee is expected to start discussing these issues after the Senate approved the motion for the creation of the committee, which was already approved by the National Assembly. It should be noted that some Kenya Kwanza leaders, including Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, have been claiming that the mediation talks are not aimed at the interests of Kenyans in any way, and that the leader of Azimio, Raila Odinga, has already arrived at an agreement with President William Ruto. He also claimed that Azimio aims to use the talks to enter to the government through the back door.
Pale kwa agenda hakuna maji ya Ukambani, hakuna bolea, hakuna barabara. Kwa hiyo mazungumzo nini iko hapo nini Wakamba? Kwa hiyo mazungumzo. Mambo ya sava ni yenu. Ni yenu hiyo. What is Kalonzo talking there on your behalf? And nothing will come out of those talks. Is a waste of time. I am telling you as Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
The talks continue today. We'll be bringing you the very latest in a subsequent news bulletin. Now, Sports CS Babu Namamba has maintained that he is competent in delivering his duties. In an interview in KTN News, Namamba says that he is competent and will deliver to Kenyans as expected of him. He says that he has come up with strategies aimed at ensuring that athletes are treated with respect.
I have no doubt whatsoever that I'm competent to run this ministry. This is not the first time I'm running the Ministry of Sports. I have run this ministry effectively before. When you look at my track record as Minister for Sports in the coalition government, I achieved so much. Today you talk about the Sports Act. I am the author of the Sports Act. I'm the one who even moved the Sports Act on the floor of Parliament because at that time. So on the question of competence, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that I have what it takes to run this ministry effectively.
On calls that he steps aside to allow investigations to take place, he says that there is no reason to step aside from office, adding that if there is any issue that will be raised warranting him to resign, he will gladly leave office.
When it comes to resignation on principle, I am not new to resigning on principle. But you resigned on the basis of substance. I resigned from ODM on substance and principle. I resigned from the Foreign Office because I believed you should not be acting actively on the campaign trail while at the same time holding public office. That is principle. And if today anything were to be brought to me, either on account of integrity or an account of gross misconduct of whatever nature, anything that constitutionally would obligate me to leave office, then I would certainly not hesitate from leaving office.
Azimio leaders are now claiming that the arrest of former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya was a political witch hunt led by Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna and Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni. They said that Oparanya has been arrested amid allegations that he aims to disrupt the president's visit to the western region this weekend. They have also accused EACC of not following the law in conducting its activities. Speaking shortly after his release, Oparanya said that EACC officials questioned him on various issues, including his relationship with Azimio leader Raila Odinga and the use of funds when he was governor of Kakamega.
What business do I do with Baba? And then they said they had some few issues to ask me about Kakamega County. When I came here, I told them I was not in a position to answer any question until I'm briefed on issues.
His lawyer Danson Omari has expressed dissatisfaction with the way EACC is carrying out its activities.
There is a new crop, there is a new animal in the town called EACC that is operating as a rogue EACC, where somebody can authorize 4 raids in Oparanya's homes, 2 without a warrant, a search warrant.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, so this morning we're looking at traffic. Different parts of the city earlier had not started to build up in most parts, but I think we're seeing that movement now. Looking on Jogo Road, there's a little bit of it coming in towards Landis. And then if we look on the Thika Superhighway, traffic coming in then through the drift out towards Pangani at the underpass. And Kiambu Road is also starting to pack up as well. Coming off the Northern Bypass, we're looking at some traffic. And we're also looking at it still heavy on Jogo Road. Landis is free and clear all the way through towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. Nothing coming off Gong Road. You're looking good on Uhuru Highway through and through. And then coming off of the Eastern Bypass, that also is not too much of a pain in the neck. Let's keep an eye on things through the morning and talk on Spice FM KE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the
7
only
minutes
way
after
to
7.
start
How
your
are you
day.
doing? Good morning. Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. This Thursday, the 24th day of August, 2023. We are just counting down to Saturday. Saturday, things are happening. 1, we go to Popo Road. We go to Automark by CFAO Motors. We look at the vehicles that they have there. Pre-owned motor vehicles. We also take our vehicles there for some services and checkup because they also have auto check. They check
For everything.
tell you your vehicle is good. If they tell you your vehicle is sawa, they tell you then now you can go to Nyeri.
Yes, because Tapiriapo Wiki Petroli, and then now all the way to Nakuru is where all roads lead this weekend. On the 26th of August, Choma Nangoma, the 4th edition of Choma Nangoma, is taking place outside of Nairobi for the first time. It's going to be a fantastic night of food, music, and party. partying. It's a lineup of Kenya's best. We're looking at Calligraph, Otile Brown, Nviri, Ben Sol, Nadia Mukami, Saru, and furthermore are going to be in attendance for your entertainment. And you can come out for just 800 shillings. Go to www.ticketsasa.com, buy your ticket, go to Nakuru, Choma Nangoma, enjoy the day like that.
Kabisa. Kabisa. This is it.
Yep.
And how much is it again?
800 shillings.
800.
Yeah.
Only.
00
On ticketsasa.com.
.com.
Everybody do that. So we have a guest who's joining us now in the studio. He is Professor Ngure Wamwachofi. He is a consultant and a retired associate professor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes, I can feel the temperatures already. The heat is coming.
I like your fashion sense as well.
Yeah, I like colors. I'm an artist. I like music. And I walk around so here. Hey, Wajakoya. I tell them, no, Wajakoya is so much younger than me. Yeah, I think he copied from me, but
copied from
it's
you.
Okay.
Everything, your style.
Yeah.
Even the love for music.
The love for music.
He loves dancing.
I started playing guitar when I was quite young, from age 7 or so. But then, those days, the music industry was very smart. It would come and just give 50 bob down payment, and they went away with the copyright. So parents like my father who loved their kids, they knew this is the wrong path to go. And so I always had, "Nikakubona na your guitar. If I see you with that guitar, you'll be in trouble." So I liked the sound, but I knew that was it, just seeing it from a distance. Fortunately, my uncle, who was a teacher, had a guitar. And so I'll sneak in there and try to do a few things here and there. Yeah.
And you play the guitar?
I'm not a music guy. I haven't learned to read those things. I just play by ear.
You just play? Do you compose as well?
Yeah. I want to compose more, but I want to do songs for Kenya to wake all of us up.
Right.
Mostly just to become more aware of why we are who we are.
Okay.
I'm a philosopher by tradition. I mean, that's what I've been trained on, but I have a very eclectic educational background. A BS in accounting, George Mason University, MA International Relations, Ohio University, and a PhD in communication. That is Ohio University.
Eclectic indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
So I've taught quite a wide range of classes I've taught in 4 universities. Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, USIU.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you retired.
When I retired.
Prof, welcome to the Situation Room. This man, City Muga, is also a mwalimu.
Mwalimu, come on.
Yeah. With an eclectic taste of everything, including proverbs. Every day, he gives us a proverb from an African country.
Yes.
Wonderful.
This week, he's been giving us proverbs from Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
Yes. Ants, siafu, sio auntie, sio shangazi. Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Now, you asked me a question, and I wanted to answer it comprehensively.
Okay.
When you ask who is the president of Burkina Faso, I have to just give you a 1-minute history.
Okay.
That whole region, West Africa and the Sahel, is actually being called the coup belt. Meaning the number of coups that have occurred, forget from 1960, just this century alone, they are very, very, very many. And there's a difference. There's usually a coup leader, and then there is a president. Okay? And oddly enough, it's only in Sudan where you hear of generals leading. In the other countries, there's a captain.
There's a lieutenant.
Yes, there's a colonel. That's probably the highest ranking person you'd hear. Yes, but the gentleman whose name you asked for is called Captain Ibrahim Traore.
He is the coup leader.
Yes.
He ousted a president.
Yes, he did.
Who is the president?
He's not the president anymore.
He is the president, Bwana. See, we recognize democratically elected leaders in Africa, Bwana. Sisi kama AU, Bwana.
Wajua, the reason why I'm mentioning this, you're asking who he ousted. Yule ambaye alitolewa akaambiwa, you go home. He's not the president.
Okay.
Ibrahim is the president.
Ibrahim is the leader.
If you ask me who the former president was, I would be able to respond appropriately. But who is the president? That's the president. If you ask me, for instance, now, who is the president of Mali? Well, what will I tell you? Alpha Conde.
Boss, I see your political affiliation and inclination. It's our.
You've got my point?
You've
got my point.
I can see.
Yes.
Okay.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant. Prof, when you hear this proverb, what do you think the Burkinabe are saying?
I think what they are saying is that Siafu, being very smart, they know where the food is. And there's no resistance from a dead elephant or a dying elephant. We have a similar proverb actually in Kitaita, which is, it's about the ticks that stick on a, they have such loyalty that even when the bull is dying, they stick on it. It goes something like, it's mwakimora. Mwakimora is the color of the bull. It's the way it is described in my mother tongue. And the bull is dying, but the tick keeps on saying, no, I am going to be right there until it is buried with the bull.
Say it in Kitaita.
Yeah. So, Mwakimora, it is said as if it's a dialogue. Mwakimora, Mwakimora njawe ewafo. I indaka na njawe yapo. No, I'll stick with my njao. So this idea
of njao is the bull.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think that the idea of Siafu on a Zingira elephant, that seems to be very similar. And probably you can extend this in our social context. When you think of how metaphorical language is, it must be telling us that people like to surround whoever they think they can eat from, even if that person is dying. And if he's dying, even better, because they can control everything. Yeah.
They will eat without question.
Yeah, will eat without question.
Right.
No resistance.
Interesting. Before we move into the conversation, you've said something interesting. So in Kitaita, njao is a bull.
Yes.
What do you call a calf in Kitaita?
Ngombe.
So ngombe is a calf.
Yeah. Oh, did you say calf?
Yes.
Oh, a calf is ngache.
Ngache.
Yeah.
Ngache is a calf.
Yeah.
Ngombe is cow.
Is the general name
for cattle.
Yeah. And then
njao is the bull.
Yeah.
In many other Bantu tribes.
And if it has been castrated, it is mbiria.
Mbiria.
Yeah.
You know that Bantu tribes, njao is a calf.
Well, we have quite a few differences, and sometimes it will be the same word but different names.
Njao, nzao is a calf.
Like the beard in Kitaita is, we call it
Ndevu.
No, we call it, it is Ndevu, yes, but we say sombe. Yeah. Now, sombe is a word that refers to the
You said you like conscious music.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just play music and you want to awaken people.
Yes.
And Kenyans.
In fact, sometimes it's not so much as spoken, but even the sounds. Because the sounds, they organize the mind in a particular form. And when you look at aesthetics, you know, if I could demonstrate, would you like me to demonstrate?
Yes.
The way music works for me is that it organizes the mind. The same way language works, and the music is language. It organizes the mind in the sense that we have a mood set. If I take this example here, and I'm playing, say, jifunze mengi ya dunia na pendo langu na kwambia, ili upate kujua, ewe wangu, barua nilikutumia, ujifunze ya dunia, usije ukaangamia, ewe wangu. Now you can hear what I'm doing here is I'm actually offering sentences that are meant to organize the mind, and you are being told you need to learn more about the world because we live in a world of knowledge, and the more you know, the more likely you are to make the right decisions. Now, this was being done in an A minor key, and so the mood is actually very somber in the sense that it's a serious matter as opposed to... So you can see this was fast, but it was fast in the sense that it introduced a different mood altogether. It was clearly supposed to be joyful. So that's how music, in my view, works, and I think it's so powerful because it has so much subtlety. If I was thinking about something and I decided to play, I would be creating the sounds on the spur of the moment. Maybe I can do that when we are getting done.
As we continue the conversation.
To think about the mood.
You'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Observing the country and what's happening in the country. You know, we wanted to have a conversation with you about looking at our leaders, looking at what we always say is a scourge in this country. Corruption.
Yeah.
What's your view on this?
Well, I think when we talk about anything, in that process we are constructing that thing. It's like the artist who is drawing a picture, and the moment they do a line, that line speaks to them and it tells them what to do next. So my major interest in the way we talk about corruption is that we tend to continue to affirm the reality of corruption, but we rarely assign why it is there. In other words, in philosophical terms, we need to say there is this element and it works in this form. The reason it is there. If our desire to talk about corruption is so we can end corruption, it seems to me that we should really be interested in organizing that topic in ways that are not just simple binary logic of blaming. And so I remember I wrote an article, actually it was in the Standard. The last debate in 2013, I think it was February the 26th, I talked about what the presidential debate missed. And what it missed for me was the major missing element was corruption. And I went ahead to explain the sense of how I saw corruption in Kenya compared to how I saw it in the US. And I think that the very discussion that we have here constantly is, there are these bad people, all they care is about themselves and so on and so on. But we don't realize that corruption is a manifestation of the state of the nation, what I call national consensus. Probably I'm lucky in that having been away from home for so long, as in the USA for 30 years, from 81 to 2011. And when you've been away, you can see the change the same way you see a child that you saw 5 years ago. You say, amekuwa mrefu sana. But the family members don't see that. So I think I got several shocks, and I continue to be shocked for the 11 years I've been back. And so the point I made about corruption was that the issue was missing because the question was asked and the two candidates answered and they just moved on. There was no follow-up, like how, what are the major factors. It was simply, if I am hired, I'll make sure I end corruption. And so the problem then there is that corruption is conceptualized like it is an enemy, just like a snake comes into your house. The snake is in the house and nobody is killing it. Leader after leader, we are told about this corruption, but nobody goes to jail. So that's a problem.
You say it's a manifestation of something.
Yes.
You say national consensus.
Yes. When I'm talking about national consensus, I'm making the case that any country creates a language, and that language becomes the guide that makes people see things the way the way we see it. The reason we think of women as inferior to men is because our language, and if you follow through the analysis of language, you see that it's constantly maintaining that inferiority status to the extent that you can hear a woman say, I don't know what is wrong with my son. Every time I visit, he's the one cooking and his wife is just there. Yeah. And if you ask her, would you be happy if your husband was cooking for you? Yeah, but that's different. In other words, it hits them that they're actually affirming the same stereotypes. And she's a woman, but she's operating at the unconscious level.
So do you think that...
By this manifestation, I mean that when we operate in a manner we are not questioning anymore, we think we are just be innocent speakers, when essentially what we are doing is we are affirming those stereotypes. Yeah.
Sure. So if we're looking now to try and understand what's going on, because it really doesn't matter where you look today, you're going to find the manifestation of corruption.
True,
indeed. It's in conversation, it's in action, it's in everything.
Yes.
So is then the current state of corruption after habitual conditioning, do you think? Because if it's now in the language, it's in the action.
Yes.
Conditioning?
It is pretty much like the example I gave of a lady who doesn't realize that she is talking about what's wrong with So in this case, we are looking at corruption, and I'm saying that most people are willing to do it, although they'll be speaking against it. I'll give you examples. One, police officers spend a whole day with traffic, and Mr. X is newly hired, and he decides he's going to uphold the values, what he was sworn to, so he's not going to be receiving any money. And it will continue for probably first day, second day. In the evening, the friends say, Mr. Innocent, so what? Can I go and buy you a beer? I know you have no money. There's a very high chance that he might switch his allegiance to be part of the story. And when I talk to young people, they tell me, if you can't beat them, join them. That's a very easy way to say this is the way it is. Corruption is here to stay. My students tell me when I was teaching, they'll tell me, Molim, corruption is here to stay. I asked a very interesting question in class one time. By show of hands, how many people would return a wallet that you picked on campus? You opened it, it was 40,000, and you took it to campus police, and you got it registered as an item that is returned with all the details. I looked around, and in a class of 66 students, only one person raised their hand. I say, so let me change the subject a little here. By show of hands, how many people will be happy if they went to the campus police to find out if their wallet has been found? And then it was found, and he opened, and they said 40,000. Everybody else's hands were up. I say we have just proven that we are very good pretenders. We live in a world where we know that corruption is there, and we are acting like it is not there, or we don't like it, but then we think we are clean. So I think that important self-reflection becomes key, and self-reflection dies when language becomes dominant, because when you are using language, you are no longer thinking about what am I saying. You are just using the words that are there. So you hear statements like, Kenya ina wenyewe. Kenya ina wenyewe means we are already saying we have surrendered to the idea that this is here to stay and there's nothing you can do. When people say, hakuna haja ya kupiga kura, they have understood that there is no need to vote. So the question then is, what is the use of having a political system where people actually don't care, and when they voted they know it doesn't make a difference? And all that is corruption, because corruption really is the idea that when we have established what is right and we don't follow, we are corrupting that idea. When lights are green, you drive. When they are red, you stop. When you decide they are green or red, it doesn't matter. The question of whether you stop or not depends on what is convenient for you, and everybody does the same. Then you realize selfishness is a permanent element. And so we can be talking of fighting it in the same manner that those police officers who just said, hey, Mr. Innocent, we can buy you beer, while they are sitting in bars and they're having conversation with friends, they'll be saying, sijui tutapata kiongozi gani atakuja kutuokoa. And kuokoa and changing the culture is everybody's responsibility. So leadership then becomes a very complex story. It's not so much as nimeamuru hivi, I've ordered this and all that. A leader will have to be the person who changes and introduces new ways of thinking about our nation, so that we become citizens who know what is right and what is wrong, and we live by that and feel very open to talk about what is wrong.
So are you therefore saying, Professor, that in everything that we do, you cannot underestimate the power of example?
Absolutely. Because even in language, you will learn by repetition. The more you repeat, the more it becomes reality. And so examples are, we have to walk the talk.
How is it then that when you talk about leadership at whatever form and at whatever level, are we hardwired to always look for guidance and look for individuals to follow?
No, I think that when people are looking for guidance, sometimes it is because they are escaping the responsibility. They prefer that somebody else will be the one making the decision. People will be feeling ashamed to call a spade, because if majority of the people are doing the same thing, you would feel like, let me be quiet. But if you stand by your words, I think you can change people's mind. For example, you have your friends coming and you are a very good cook, and your friends think you are not macho enough because you listen to your wife too much, and you are the one who cooked, and you have your apron on, the bell rings. Hey, wait, let me get my apron off. So when they come in, you are there like, hi guys, welcome. So this idea is very clear that you are on the one hand playing to the idea that you want your friends to see you as the macho person, the macho persona that has become your consensus among your friends. And now you know that is not really the right thing, but now you're going to have to pretend to go along.
It gets to the heart of why it is we seek approval from those we consider our peers and our friends, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You want them to approve of you. Why is it important?
Yeah. Why is it important that they approve you?
Yes, approve of you.
It means that we lack a lot of confidence as people, and we are constantly disoriented about where we should be holding. Our anchors seem to be constantly floating. I want to be here, but people don't think this is right, so I'm not going to do that. When you look at me and I'm wearing a bandana, can you imagine how many people ask me questions about my bandana? I mean, how can it be so important? Then I have to tell them, well, bandanas are very helpful. When you are sweaty, the sweat doesn't drip. And because it doesn't drip, it's good. When it is dusty, I take off the bandana, I put it on there, and I'm breathing filtered air. Isn't that a good thing? And even better, when I'm in church, I walk in my bandana because I'm in the same class as the women who are wearing their bandanas. And I remember one time we went to a burial in Moktau, and as I saw the priest say, you cannot touch this coffin because of that thing. You are not respecting this person. And this was my uncle we were burying. So I was left there, the bad guy.
Because of your bandana?
Yeah, because of my bandana. And, you know, when they say, wanaume vueni kofia so people can pray, so show of respect, and I remain like that, some people looking at me like, you are embarrassing us.
But it's not hard.
Then you have relatives who actually say, this is my bandana, they just take it off. They are claiming it, not because they really want to claim it. They are feeling very ashamed that this is their cousin they are associated with and is wearing a bandana. And then I asked them, do you know Rick Nelson is a musician? He always wore a bandana, right? But who decides what is what? And this innovativeness, I think, is important. We can't kill it, because when we want people to be independent and make decisions that are useful, we are opening up to this idea that when we know things are right or they are wrong, we should stick to what we are seeing. And that when people can have that kind of debate, there'll be no longer the story of people just following whatever is popular without questioning.
Right, let's take a break.
Yeah.
28 minutes to 8, Professor Ngure Wamochofi is our guest this morning. He's a consultant and a retired associate professor. We're talking about the beat of corruption, why most leaders are dancing to the tune. He's coming here with his guitar. He's playing some tunes. After this break, he'll play something. He's saying he's going to actually come up with an impromptu in-studio composition. We are waiting for that.
Yeah.
Back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Jimmy Gathu live. This is a man's show where we talk about politics, men talk, sports, anything that spells man.
Does your partner communicate in any way, be it financially, be it sexually, be it heart to heart? That's a communication that you will never hear in a marriage counseling session.
So the most important thing is just be honest with yourself.
Jimmy Gathu Live happens every Saturday from 2 to 7.
Only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's cloudy at 14 and 28 will be the high in a clear Nakuru, down to lows of 12, 13 and mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 24 and we'll see highs of 26. In a clear Eldoret at 13. Down to lows of 11. All right, 22 and mostly clear in Mombasa, highs of 32 and we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly clear Malindi at 24. It's clear at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 31, and 31 will be the high in a clear Kakamega at 17. Mostly clear at 20 in Kampala, and we'll see highs of 29 in Dar es Salaam, coming down to lows of 23. It's 9 and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 29 in a clear Lagos, and highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa.
This is DJ Adams. Join us this and every Saturday for Soul Sessions with me and DJ Seda. Come enjoy 18,000 seconds of your favorite old school jams.
Join us this and every Saturday from 7 to midnight.
Only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, a little bit of busyness in the city this morning. We're looking at it heavy on Jogoo Road going out towards Landis, and a little bit of it here and there on the Thika Superhighway coming out towards Pangani at the underpass, and of that going into the CBD. Uhuru Highway not too bad as coming off Nyayo Stadium, heading out towards the Haile Selassie Junction and then into the CBD out towards Westlands. Inbound traffic from Westlands touching on Chiromo and then coming out towards Parklands or then going through towards the CBD. It's going to do a number on folks this morning. Some on the Eastern Bypass heading out to the AP College Junction, some traffic there, and then towards the Roy Junction. We'll keep an eye on things and see what happens as we go along. Talk to us, Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Conversation.
94.
Next 23 minutes with Professor Nguru Omochofi, who is a consultant, retired associate professor. He's taught in America and he's taught in the country. And he says, okay, sawa. We are dealing with corruption, but we are not dealing with corruption. We basically just talk about corruption. We don't seem to have internalized this corruption story altogether. City, if I went to the break, you wanted to ask something.
I wanted to ask. See, there's a salient discussion that we're having here about conformity and non-conformity, because it appears that we choose a path that is easier, and that is to conform.
True.
And so long as there are numbers attached to that conformity, then we will take the view that every other logic that subscribes to that subject will be set aside, and we'll believe that because many people believe it is so, even if we know it is wrong. Why do I say this? I say this because there's it's like a rush and a push and a stampede, not to conform, but to affirm. And there's that constant affirmation, which in and of itself is what tells you that there's a struggle people have with this issue. When you're at ease with something, you don't struggle.
Yeah.
But when you're constantly trying to prove the point, there's a struggle. And one has to ask, who are you struggling with? And essentially, you're struggling with yourself, because what you're doing and what you know to be right are not the same thing.
Very true.
Yes.
Absolutely true. You go to a restaurant.
Yes.
Nataka chapati na nyama. Then suddenly you see somebody walking with a chapati with something. I think I should have ordered that. Which tells you we are constantly struggling with where to hold. And I think my anchor usually is when you are at peace with yourself, any place is home. But the key thing that we miss all the time is the major philosophical question. W-H-Y. Why? And we don't like to deal with the whys because we prefer to stay on the symptom level. We are seeing there's a problem and we say, corruption iko. It's like living in a dirty house and then all of us agree, but I'm hoping you'll sweep. You're hoping she will sweep. And so it never gets swept. And we get angry and really affirm the idea that nyumba iko safi. That's what Kenya is.
So you're saying, you don't want to deal with the reason that is causing this corruption. Why? Because if you do deal with it, then it'll disappear. So does that then mean that CT, after many years, could actually be right? That we enjoy the corruption. We like it. It's
I think
it's beneficial in one way or another.
Yes, a good analogy will be the switch, the light switch. You turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. So if something is good for you, let it flow. It's not good, you turn it. If it's making you feel embarrassed, you want to say, I was not part of this. Well, you are part of this. Actually, when we agreed.
In our instance, Professor, the turning on and off has to do with our going to church. The going to church is supposed to now show and demonstrate that we're actually not involved in you. Yes, because I go to church.
Yes,
and to make it better, I may even be an elder in the church. And just to sanctify myself further, I'll talk about how much I give, which I really shouldn't say if I'm to follow the dictates of that faith. But we will do.
You give while you are...
Yes.
You don't have to open your mouth and say, I can't.
Yes, essentially. Then come Monday, I go back to everything that I do.
Factory settings.
Yes, and then to sort of like give myself a little resetting, I have to go back to church so that I feel I am not as amoral or immoral as I actually know I am. But there's something that I've always found disturbing. It's something I debate with myself every day. When you do something which is wrong, just to put it simply, let's leave the word corruption aside. What does it do to you?
It removes the peace.
Yes. Something happens to you, the person.
Disrupts you. Yeah.
Yes, it disrupts your being. And somehow you are no longer at ease, if I may say so.
True. Because what's happening is that you know that your comfort level is here. You had a desire here. And that desire has caused you to step out of your comfort level. Although the desire fulfillment made you think that you'll be happy when you have it. And so it becomes a moving target. It's a mirage. You want to be happy. When I teach, and it doesn't matter what class I teach, I always have a session where I just talk about desire. And the reason for this is that when we talk about corruption, really, we have to understand that it is happening because of a reason. And that's why I'm saying we don't ask the question why. And I would say that corruption happens because of desire. And desire can be good or bad. In class, I talk about desire mostly to show us that it's good when you are desiring to have your degree. So you're going to work towards that. But when you are desiring to have just money, you are likely to choose any degree that has money as opposed to whether you'll be happy. So now procurement has lots of money. And you look at university enrollments, you have lots of people in procurement. And so they are driven by desire. But once they find that they are being spotlighted for having stolen money, that desire now has brought in a discomfort. That's why understanding the self, which is the point you are making, becomes the key. Because when you understand self and you love self, the most likely thing you like to do is to maintain the peace that you have already created, as opposed to allowing it to be undermined by desire. So questioning the self, in my view, is the starting point. We have corruption because of ignorance of the implication. When somebody takes lots of money has been lost in NYS or whatever organization you are thinking about. All the purpose that was intended there is not going to be fulfilled. But you are the same person who says you love your country and you love your people, and sometimes it can even affect you, but people may not care about that. And I'm saying that when we are ignorant about the implications and we don't talk about them, so people don't really latch onto what is my responsibility as a person, and the everyday language does not bring us to that point, something. We are ignorant, for example, of what is the role of money. We just think of money as an end in itself. We don't understand that money, in economic terms, it is understood as a store of value. So it serves the purpose that if I put 300 in the bank, it is actually there and it is accounted for because it is 300. That's what it's serving. But money itself doesn't exist. Money is an exchange. When I do a service, I cut you a loan and you give me money, now that's a representation of service. When you receive money from corruption, you have stolen because there's no exchange. Yeah, there's no exchange. The money just moved into your account and now you are rich. And you see how society then participates in this. Yule jamaa ameendelea bwana. That guy is doing very well. And if you are newly hired and you are not clear what is going on, you are told bwana usikalie masikio. Yeah? Don't be quiet here. Make sure that you
do something for yourself.
Yeah.
You said, Prof, that what we may need is a leader who comes and decides we have got to go in this direction.
Yes.
But earlier you had said that it's we as a people, as a society, who have gotten to a point where we have national consensus around this evil thing that we call corruption. We call it evil, but we practice it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's so ingrained in our system, how can one person come and remove it from us?
It's absolutely not possible. In fact, my model of what would be a president who would really change this, they have to be very eclectic in the sense that they understand things in their interrelationships. You know, when I was telling you I have a BS in accounting, I'm international relations, communication and all that, it is this ability to be able to see so many things and how they all tie together. And our weakness as a nation is that we tend to compartmentalize. You know, you look at a notebook with those squares, if you remember, like the notebook I have here.
The math one.
And you're looking at one square and you don't even want to know how it is related to everything else. That's the tragic state that we are in, because we are assuming that, well, if I'm sorted, then I'm okay. I had an interesting case of travel one time, and my flight was overbooked, so I'm there, one of those who have been bumped, and that happens with the airlines because they know some people will be late and so on and so on. So I'm asked, how many of you were online? We told you will get some seats, and I said, there's me and these others. And somebody's tugging on my shoulder. Hey, don't worry about others, just say yourself, because they want me to get the seat. And they are doing that out of love. They are not thinking about what about everybody else. And it is this self-interest, selfishness that really blinds us from understanding the broader implication. So a president will be one who understands the need for the country's mentality to change. So the question of what happens with our radio stations, what happens with our musicians, that's where everybody comes in as opposed to one person. Everybody is participating in trying to make sure that we are all speaking the same language. So a president just pronouncing that I've decided from today on something is not going to happen, it's not going to work out because people can only be obedient. It will be the equivalent of boss is not here, so now we are chatting, you know, all relax, boss is in here, oh, you've got to look busy. You know, so this looking busy is to give that impression. In other words, we become pretenders in everyday life, and that's part of the problem. These are the kinds of things that need to be highlighted by our educational system, our church or spiritual systems, by all systems. It's like you have to soak the country into this new consciousness so that everybody feels ashamed to say that guy is doing very well.
How long do you think that would take? How long has it taken for us to have this national consensus that you call? How long would it take?
Let me answer that with a question. We saw Rwanda 1994, and people were killing each other. And today, people go to Rwanda for tours to see how well organized it is. And we might ask questions, what were the things done? Why do people come out on a Saturday to say today is cleaning day and everybody's doing that? It doesn't take too long if people are interested, because like I said earlier, it's like a switch. You turn it on, and I think most of what is happening in the country now is an attempt to switch things off. And there's even more confusion because we are at a point where we have what I'd call a divided spirit. On the one hand, I want to entertain my desire, and then there's I am fearing if I speak out, I might be eliminated. You remember during elections? Campaign. I mean, you had Gachagua saying, President, don't kill my children. You had Ruto saying, don't kill my children. Yeah. What is this? Was this simply strategy or what? And people, citizens, have those same fears. Hey, hii mambo nazungumza bwana. You talk and you find you are dead. I say, no, you can never find you are dead, because when you are dead, you don't find. Yeah? and the point is very simple. When we realize that everybody participates in this, it even works from kindergarten and even in the family, so that people realize we have to do what is good.
I hear what you're saying, Prof, but at that point, from what I see, and I think we can have examples from around the world, really, that when such a change takes place, there always has to be somebody or a group who is on the platform of leadership that will rally the troops. That more often than not, that has to be the case, that you will not just have an organic mushrooming of change of ideas or change of thought. Even in Rwanda, it wasn't just that people were traumatized after the genocide. It was a combination of things. People were traumatized after the genocide. People saw that, yes, there has to be a change. The courts that came in and sat and took and had conversations with people, all those things were happening. But then there was a central voice that then brought all of these things together. So is there no need then for a leadership who really does understand all these things that you're talking about, that corruption does 1, 2, 3, impunity has this kind of effect on society, and if we're going to change it, it has to be everybody, because then it is through policy, it is through communication, it is through awareness then that you have the cascaded effect of all these things happening. So doesn't there need to be somebody at a group, a person at a central point of rally?
You think of it as a tree. The tree has a trunk, that's the holding part, and then all these branches have sub-branches. And everybody is playing their role because they are now soaked. If they are soaked in that understanding, the consciousness of saying we want a better country, then it works. But most times we are in postponement mode, and I think when you hear people saying, I want things to get worse so people can change. Well, the change means for people to live better. How can you be wishing for them to get worse in order for them to change? Sounds like an interesting point that when Marx says a people's consciousness is a product of their material condition. So if people are suffering, then they know what suffering is. If they are happy, then they know what happiness is, and they may be blind to the other. There's a Chinese story of a woman who's being driven home. It is snowing, and the guy who's directing the horses that are pulling the chariot sees that there's a lady freezing in that abandoned place, and he says, Madam, do you think we should rescue that lady? No, let's get home first, then you can come back for him. So they get home, and it's nice and warm, and Madam, you remember that lady? Which lady? Which lady? Because she has already forgotten about that. And I think that we are living in that world where when somebody feels so frustrated, they are telling you, I don't want to have to worry about everything. Let me just take care of my children. I'm interested in my family. And these other things are not part of the problem. We are back to the point you are raising, that we need to see that the solutions come from everybody, every sector, every institution. And this is why it is so important that whoever is in position of leadership have to really have a disciplinary approach. Somebody does something wrong, let it be highlighted, let it be a discussion even for a week in the media, so that people begin to attach shame with the property that cannot be accounted for. How many times have we had declare your wealth requirement?
Right.
And it is declared, and that's the end of the story. So there's one thing, doing something about something and creating the impression that you are doing something about something, those are two different things. When I see the border guys and they're telling me, hey, Professor Anjo, tulikuambia we ujui, when we are telling us that we are making mistakes, and now we realize, ametubeba ufala bwana. What would happen if you had elections today? Yangu kura haiwezi kuiona. Now, I see what they are saying, but I'm sympathetic to the fact that there is still a significant ignorance, and this is the ignorance of something that is really key. To understand that when you see a square, like all these squares, you can't see just one and think when you understand it, that's enough. You need to see this square in context of the other squares. So the man who's telling you he'll never have my kura again, they are thinking they can have another alternative instead of thinking, well, right now he's been elected, the court said so, and therefore he is president. But now, if you are to help the president, what would you do? To get him to see that he could actually do a very good job if he is able to understand how all these elements play.
So like you're saying.
But when you have just one guy who is a loyalist to you, and he tells you everything is okay except the other guys in Nafanya Kelele, the president ends up thinking that I think I'm doing very well because everybody tells me so.
Yeah.
When you have the USA saying the elections were fair, the Supreme Court held that, we can say, well, that's how things work, and because that's how American stuff works, that's okay, but it doesn't apply in Kenya. We have a case right now where Donald Trump is in real trouble, and it does appear that he could actually go to jail. But the idea that he's being tried itself is a big step. That's where you see the power of when things are meant to be this way, they must be this way. When light is red, it means stop, you must stop. So you can't be a leader, a president who says, we want to end corruption. But now when people have been named in corrupt practices and nothing happens, then I'm asking, so did we not say we're going to do this?
Say it?
You end up confusing your country because people don't understand what's going on. Just when 2013 new system started, I was very hopeful. Then I get to a point where I'm looking at the Auditor General reports, and they took one for Mombasa, for CI and other places. This was after the time when one of the counties had a wheelbarrow selling for 100 and something thousand.
110,000.
Yeah?
58.
So I was thinking, now that these reports are out for every county, shouldn't we see people going to court? Do you know right now there are cases going on, for example, in Taita County, corruption investigation for the first administration. When things are going at this pace and you are looking at people who have been given positions, you are really attempting to be the leader, but you don't have any clue that all these things need to fall together. And I think the president's advisors could be people who are very loyal and they continue to let him know that everything is going okay. But they should be the people who ask him questions. Mr. President, you said in 100 days we'll be here. How come we're not there? What should we do? What is it that we are not doing? In other words, the president would do very well if he recognized that it is people who tell him he's not doing well that are his best friends, and that the relationship should be one of not beginning to call them names and then it becomes a name-calling game. Instead, it will be a state in which, oh, tell me more. And, okay, so you say this is wrong. In your opinion, how should this be fixed? And you can take it to a family level where a child tells the father, this is not good, and he says, shut up, I'm the father here, and I don't want to hear any of that. As opposed to, I'm the father here, tell me more, where are we wrong, and so what in your opinion should be happening? Oh, as a matter of fact, why don't you call all members of the family and we can have these conversations? You're a president, every day you have your 5 minutes on your radio and tell people where we are, the things that are happening. Just like you guys read newspapers in the morning, a president ought to be that kind of person who understands, not just relying on loyalists telling you this is how things should be. So, if I may summarize again, what I'm saying is, number one, we need to start looking at national issues in a very rich form, not narrow, small squares. We need to be citizens who understand how things are interconnected. Because your actions then teach you to know that if I do this, things will go wrong. We need to be citizens who recognize that my brother has been named in corruption. I am not going to be the same person who is going to look for who's trying the case so we can tell him to be nice to him. We should be the people say, this is shameful. I'm ashamed of my brother's act. I want to apologize on behalf of the family for doing that. But this is so ingrained, and I'll give you a case of a parent who is called by police. Your child is here. We caught them wakivuta bangi or whatever the story will be. And he says, officer, unajua huyu kijana, he's a good boy, lakini it is his friends. Yeah?
Yule was so and so.
So now they provide a little bit of warm hand greasing, and the kid goes home, and as the father is driving, he's looking at the rear view and telling his son at the back, he didn't even allow him to sit at the front because he's so angry. When are you going to learn your lessons? How many times shall I tell you this? And you have parents who always start with their sentence with how many times?
How many times?
How many times shall I tell you this? And if the kid was talking at the back, honestly, I think what he would say is, Dad, I'm going to learn my lessons, but you just took me out of the classroom. Yeah, you just took me out of the classroom. So
you should have let me stay.
Yeah.
Prof, we thank you very much for joining us. Professor Ngure Womochofi, consultant, a retired associate professor. He's also a musician. He's carrying a guitar. We don't have actually time, and you could have done that.
That's okay.
Quick.
We don't have to.
Next time, huh?
Yeah.
Next time. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Come again
done
soon.
an hour already?
Yeah, already.
Wow.
It's 8 a.m. Good morning.
We should do this in series.
Spice up your life.
Top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Police are set for a pay rise beginning this month following the conclusion of a job evaluation process by the National Police Service Commission. National Police Service Commission Chairperson Eliud Kinuthia said the review was arrived at following a consensus from a process undertaken jointly with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Kinuthia also noted that the process is in line with the review cycle of the civil servants' pay as provided for by the Constitution.
The normal and the usual cycle. Time for doing it for all public servants also was due. And therefore, as the National Police Service Commission, we have participated fully with SRC to ensure the normal review and increment for all public servants. Police officers are also not left out.
The Inspector General of Police, Jafet Kome, said the money would be reflected in the pay slips by this Friday.
Ripoti ya bishara mipya ya maofisa wetu wale uniformed na support staff civilian. Tukitoka hapa, we are going to implement this. We shall be running the payroll today. Na tungependa kuhakikishia maofisa wetu, we are going to burn midnight oil so that we run the payroll, and by the end of this week, by Friday, they have their salaries in the banks.
The new pay rise, which affects both the uniformed officers and civilians within the service, comes as a big relief to the police, who haven't had a salary increase for the last 2 years. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has directed Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah to make a statement on the floor of the House in regard to the now controversial new university funding model. Wetangula's order came after legislators called for the scrapping of the model in which students are sponsored either through scholarships or bursaries, asking the government to revert to the old model where learners paid as little as 16,000 shillings annually to enroll for degree courses. Nyando MP Jared Okello brought up the issue with claims that university students will be required to pay approximately 258,000 shillings as the lowest amount for a degree course per annum. President William Ruto will today speak to TikTok CEO Shu Zichu over the moderation of explicit content on the Chinese video sharing platform. Speaking at the Nakuru State Lodge, Ruto said he plans to raise the issue of an inappropriate content on the platform, which has led to the launching of a petition in Parliament seeking its ban in Kenya.
I will be speaking to the global CEO of TikTok. I know we've had a conversation as a country around TikTok, and some of the challenges that are in that space.
In the petition to the National Assembly, the executive officer of Bridget Connect Consultancy, Bob Ndolo, wants MPs to ban the use of TikTok in the country, arguing the popular social media site is exposing young people to explicit sexual content. The petitioner submits that content on TikTok is inappropriate and promotes violence, sex, hate speech, vulgar language and offensive behavior, terming it a threat to cultural and religious values. However, the petition has met mixed reception from legislators, with some arguing that the platform should not be banned because it births content creation jobs for the youth.
In this digital age, we cannot as a country afford to live in isolation. We cannot operate from some island.
TikTok as an entity has committed no crime. It is how it is used, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the heart of that petition goes to the issues of morality.
We cannot continue supporting TikTok when our young people are using the same platform to post pictures when they are naked.
And officers from the Kenya Bureau of Standards had a hard time as they attempted to raid shops allegedly selling contraband goods in Eastleigh area of Nairobi. Commotion ensued as CABS officers and their colleagues from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations moved in to conduct the raid. The multi-agency team had a rough time as angry traders attempted to block them from accessing a number of shops that had been targeted by the officers. The visibly agitated traders also confronted journalists for filming. And the 5 BRICS nations are open to expanding the club to new members as it pursues greater clout in shaping the world order. Calls to enlarge the BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, has dominated the agenda as its 3-day summit in Johannesburg and exposed rifts between its members. China is seeking to rapidly grow the BRICS amid rising competition with the United States, but the bloc's other major power, India, is wary of the intentions of its geopolitical rival. Nearly 24 countries have formally applied to join the BRICS, according to officials, which accounts for 40% of the world's population and a quarter of the global economy. Some 50 heads of state and government have joined the BRICS leaders in Johannesburg. I'm Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants tax. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Kiswahili.
Ben low, nin inte, yenin there, ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not me. Because
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still a little bit of traffic on the Thika Superhighway coming in through towards Pangani, heading out into the CBD. There's some on Kiambu Road as well. Now is when the folks coming off the Northern Bypass and then onto Limuru Road are waking up. We're looking at traffic coming in from Raka through Whispers and then also coming in from Roslyn, Two Rivers, Kitisuru and the United Nations Avenue out towards Limuru Road. That's when it's all starting to look really busy right about now. Coming out of Westlands, not too shabby. Some traffic will take you out through towards the what's this place called? The expressway exit, a little bit of that, but we should be fine through most parts of the city. Lunga is also starting to pack up. Let's take a look in a short while how that opens up. Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
It's 8
Room,
minutes after 8.
the
How are
only
you
way
doing?
to start
Welcome
your
to
day.
the third hour of the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Always live on air, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And for 2 hours every week, the morning, we are live on KTN Home. We're heading to Nakuru this weekend. Choma na Ngoma.
Yes, we are. It's the 26th of August, and that's on Saturday. So get up very early in the morning, have your breakfast, do what you need to do, because Choma na Ngoma is happening outside of Nairobi for the first time. It's the 4th edition, and we're doing the business properly. Remember the time when it happened in Nairobi? People like Yemi Alade were around, Pato Ranking, Calligraph did it, Sanai Petande was there. Now, for the 4th edition, which is outside of Nairobi, Calligraph will be back.
Where?
Chile Brown will be in the house.
Where?
Ben Sol, Nadia Mukami, Saru, Fathermore, CT likes Fathermore. Do you know which song he sang? It's okay. You can check today, because then he'll be in operation on Saturday. Okay?
Furthermore will be there.
Furthermore will be there. Exactly.
Essentially, you're saying, moreover,
Furthermore will be there for further entertainment. All right. Rift Valley Sports Club, 800 shillings. Ticketsasa.com. Do all the business, and let's go for some Choma na Ngoma on Saturday.
Mambo ni kama namna hiyo. And as you're heading there, pass by Popper Road in South Sea, and that is Bellevue. There you will find Automark. The gate right opposite the Kenya Bureau of Standards gate. Right opposite it. Automark by CFAO Motors. They sell very, very good pre-owned motor vehicles. They've got quite a number. Just go there, check them out and see, what are you selling? What do you have? I was there yesterday. They've got many cars. Many
cars.
Oh, yes, many vehicles. Just see. And then they've got this garage with seriously experienced mechanics. So actually, if you take your car, this Saturday they have an open day. Go there, they do some checkup for you, and then they take you around the yard. They show you the very many vehicles that they have, very many models, latest models of vehicles, pre-owned motor vehicles brought in, checked by them, and then said, this is a good car, we can sell it. So when you buy a vehicle and they tell you it's 60,000 kilometers, that's the mileage, Okay? When they tell you this car is a 2018 model, that is a 2018 model. Everything from the engine to everything else. Shower. This Saturday on Popper Road, Automark. Next month, Kenya is hosting Africa to climate talks. We're calling it what? The Africa Climate Summit 2023. It's going to be held in Nairobi at the KICC. Various conversations taking place. Kenya is taking the front row and a leading position on the Africa Climate Talks. The CEO of that summit is in the studio now with us, Joseph Nganga. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat, the Situation Room. Karibu sana.
Asante.
City has the day's proverb. Every week he gives us a proverbs from one country. This week the proverbs are from Burkina Faso, which has a military ruler and a president who's been ousted.
Yes. Blaise
Compaoré.
Yes. That's the gentleman.
That's the man, eh?
Yes. In that region, if you're talking about West Africa and you're talking about the Sahel region, it's called a coup belt. It's like the thing that predominates the conversation there is a coup followed by another coup followed by a counter coup. It's hard work keeping up, but the proverbs remain the same.
We haven't had a coup in a while.
Where?
Captain so-and-so. Do something.
Come on. Shake things up just a little bit.
Next door, these guys are at it. We're being left behind. Come on, man. Anyway, and now it's gone a notch further. Nigeria is telling people, excuse me, get out of our business. You, first of all, you Nigeria, you.
You echo us.
You're telling us what to do.
Who are you?
We are going to come there and we know who was elected and who is in power right now.
We know who should have been elected.
We'll set it right for you.
We'll come and install democracy.
Keep joking with us. Right. Today's proverb. Ants, as in siafu. Okay? Si anti. Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Yes.
Joseph, this proverb, when you hear it, what's your interpretation of it?
Ants are very intelligent. They can see when dinner is about to be served.
Can spot it from far.
Exactly.
So what do you think the Burkinabe are saying? Be like the ant?
Well, I'm not sure what they're trying to say, but if I were to think on my feet, which is not my strength, I would say it's about anticipating opportunities and challenges, and ants have an ability and a knack to do that. And despite their small size, when an elephant is weak and it's its worst, the most little of animals can overcome it.
Good perspectives. Good perspectives.
No, it's actually very good. In fact, there's this picture in my mind when you go to these channels that deal with animals and how they go about their political affairs. You actually see how all these animals, when some creature has died, over time, you see the creature, then slowly it just disappears until there is nothing. And ants are part of that particular political system. Yes.
Yep. Joseph, you're part of a group of professionals that people don't interact with on a daily basis, the public, the wider public. When the president hosted you at State House and announced you as the CEO of the Africa Climate Summit, some people were seeing you for the first time. Some people will see you next month for the first time and will be like, okay, so we've got a Kenyan who was hosting this. Who is he? So why don't you just introduce us to Joseph Ng'ang'a?
Well, how much time do you have?
Wow. A lot of time.
As we have time, a whole hour.
No, I would say I am obviously a Kenyan, born and raised in Thika. I've spent most of my life working in entrepreneurship, so setting up companies, building new organizations across different sectors, and in the last 15 years in the renewable energy sector. But renewable energy and climate are very closely linked, and so I would say climate, which is an emerging agenda for all of us, is part of what I've spent 15 years doing. I also have 2 wonderful children, and yeah, that is Joseph.
360 view, an introduction into Joseph.
No.
That's what, 270?
No, that's too. No.
You want some 90 more?
That's. He said 360. No, it's 180.
It's 180.
Yes.
There's the other side.
Children, you then.
I have parents too.
Okay, I've got you.
You got it.
I've got it.
360 now.
That's 720.
Okay. So you said the last 15 years you've spent time in the renewable energy space, and you're seeing the correlation between that and climate and the climate change. Now you will be leading Kenya's preparation and organization of the Africa Climate Summit. What is the Africa Climate Summit?
Thank you. And just to be very clear, I am not leading. This is His Excellency's vision. He is leading the world in a new conversation around climate. And I am what we call KYM. I'm here to make sure that the machinery works so that he has a platform in which to engage the world in this new narrative.
Okay.
And it's a really exciting summit. It's a fast summit that Africans are coming together, gathering to agree on a common position to engage the world from a climate action perspective. It's also really exciting because the attendance is over 25 African presidents, global leaders, leaders of philanthropy, leaders of civil society, private sector, and so on. So we anticipate that the conversation would not be people speaking to themselves, but rather the global community engaging to address an existential crisis that we are all facing, which is climate change. And we'll be doing so on the continent, and it's hosted in Nairobi by His Excellency in his capacity as the chair of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change at the AU. So it's an AU summit hosted by His Excellency in Kenya.
Why is it important this time? Why are we hosting it for the first time?
I think there's a recognition that as a continent, we can no longer be seen as victims. We can no longer be seen as helpless. We must be seen as part of the solution. And we do have the solutions. As His Excellency says, we have across the continent all the tools, all the instruments that can help unlock the climate crisis. But to do so, we need to discuss the whole climate finance architecture. The current situation with financing makes it impossible for us to unlock those opportunities and deliver solutions to the world. And so we need to figure out as a collective how we address the climate finance part. So what we already have, which are the resources, can then be optimized.
There are many conversations around climate, around renewable energy, some say to be clashing. So we are looking at world geography, and those have always bumped heads in terms of what ought to be done. I think it's very interesting that a conversation now is being steered from an African point of view, and that those who are in positions of leadership then can now take charge and be the conversation starters and continuers of this. But the question is now, will it be looking at these conversations that are being had from an African perspective in terms of what African nations must do and not what they've been told to do over the last 20 years?
It's a very good question. And the reason I feel it's an important question is because it's also about perspectives. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to say, actually, I understand what the challenge is as an African leader. I know what I can contribute, and these are the things I need from my colleagues globally to be able to make my contribution. And I think by having this conversation in Africa, led by African governments, ensures that that is what is coming across. You will see throughout the summit, and I hope you're attending, you will see throughout the summit.
We need to be invited.
No, it's open registration. We are already at 21,000 registrants. Okay, please join.
We need to be invited.
And we are closing down the registration tomorrow at noon. So if you're going to register, please do so.
No, I didn't hear me.
He's invited you.
Please go on.
His Excellency has invited the world. I believe that includes you. So from that perspective, it's Africans saying, yes, others have polluted in the past. They must help address the challenges we are facing because we didn't cause that pollution, and therefore the impacts on climate must be compensated by those who have done the pollution. But that is not enough, because going forward, unless we work collectively, even with the expected compensation in terms of loss and damage, in terms of the $100 billion committed annually, in terms of the 0.7% of development finance being committed, it's hardly enough. It gets us a few $100 billion. But what we need are over $3 trillion annually from 2030 to mitigate the impacts of climate change. So yes, let's have those who have polluted, compensate those who are suffering the worst of it. But in addition to that, let us work collectively to unlock what is needed, which is a substantially larger amount of resources.
Sure. There's also the conversation about the development of African nations and how that plays vis-a-vis the need to protect the environment and to mitigate the dangers of climate change. Where does this all fall? Because largely those countries rest and are domiciled in Africa.
Yes.
There's the need for development. There's also the need to protect the environment. Where will this conversation play here?
Clearly, you've done your homework. It's very, very important that we address the development part of our continent. We have, for example, over 600 million Africans who don't have access to electricity. We have education needs. We have infrastructure needs. We are the youngest continent in the world. Those young people need jobs. The development agenda is crucial. And we are very excited because as part of the summit, we will have discussions around that. The MDB reform, the DFIs and their reforms, the global financial architecture and their reforms are crucial to ensuring that we are providing the right kind of development finance to unlock development opportunities on the continent. When countries are at the precipice of debt default, have challenges with liquidity, it's impossible for them to also prioritize climate investments. So first and foremost, we must prioritize the right kind of development finance. So the conversation at the Africa Climate Summit will include conversations around development and the right type of development finance. We can no longer continue having the kind of credit ratings that makes it impossible for countries on the continent to borrow money to advance their development agenda. But what we're also saying is that climate and climate investment is not in contradiction to development. It is in addition to. So let's do all the right things to fix the development agenda, but then let's also build onto that the climate agenda.
When we say, because you've touched on something that the president has also talked about, even globally, we need to review the global financial architecture. Do we have proposals on the table?
Absolutely.
Is there a specific agenda that will be discussed at this summit, which we hope that at the end of the summit there'll be a communique and a resolution being adopted by African countries? This is what we are telling the world going forward. We start engaging on this particular front.
Absolutely. So one of the outcomes of the Africa Climate Summit is the Africa Declaration, or rather the Nairobi Declaration. And within that declaration, we talk about those points where we say what needs to happen, what is the right conversation around the financial architecture that must be implemented going forward. And I think His Excellency has taken a very bold position in engaging the world by defining the challenges and then offering solutions. But those solutions must be addressed and implemented on a global stage. They are not exclusive to Kenya or to Africa. They are global conversations. What do I mean by that? If you look at his narrative on the global financial architecture, and as I said earlier, let's please continue with this development conversation. Let's make sure we are reforming the MDBs. Let's make sure we are following the Bridgetown Initiative and other initiatives around that. But that won't get us the quantum of money needed to address climate challenges. And to bring it closer to home, if you look at a country like Malawi, they have over $1 billion worth of infrastructure damage in the last 2 years because of cyclones.
Yeah.
Now, Malawi today has a hard time borrowing money to invest in the country's development agenda, let alone address the climate damage, because it's considered from a credit rating perspective, from a liquidity, from a debt perspective, as a difficult to invest in country. And so what His Excellency is saying is we must look at the climate agenda very differently. We must collect global revenues that are independent of political interests. Today, revenues are collected from developing world based on their commitments, based on what they want to provide, based on political interest. If the politics of a particular country like the US changes, their development finance, their climate finance changes. So His Excellency is proposing, and that's part of the declaration, is that we have global revenues that are independent of regional or country politics. But then the governance is also crucial to that money. So if we collect all that money, but the decisions are made by those who have the ability to contribute the most, they will drive their agenda.
Yep.
So the governance of that money must be driven by climate first. And then the priority on investment also needs to be very clearly around climate and not around regional interest. Kenya has a much stronger position in terms of its ability to borrow vis-a-vis Burundi, for example. So we must not have Kenya borrowing based on what Kenya wants to do. For this pot of money, that must be driven by where do we get the highest climate impact for those global revenues. And so we expect that as part of the declaration. We have drafted the declaration based on His Excellency's vision. That is now sitting with the AU as an AU declaration. AU is sharing it with all member states, gathering their inputs. And I'm very, very excited and feel very strongly that they will endorse the declaration because it speaks to us as a collective, as Africans.
It's been said previously that it's easy for African nations to come together because our problems are more or less similar. So similar problems, easy to come together in concert. Would this be another position whereby looking at the problems, look at bans, for example, that have taken place that would then protect the environment in one way or another on the African continent? The problem of implementation comes into play. Okay, what happens after that? You could replicate it across the continent. Doesn't matter where you look, really, and you'll find those issues. When you look at financing, again, another problem. Through and through. Is this an opportunity for Africa to have a united front when it comes to some of these matters and say, well, look, let us deal with our issues as Africa? Because I think there's a lot that needs to be done. We can point fingers at the global north for a lot. And in some cases, it's necessary to do because they're at fault. In other cases, no, because we have a lot of work to do. Is this an opportunity to then have we as African nations united on a front in terms of what needs to happen administratively, governmentally, at the same time saying this is the position that we have taken for world conversations then on climate?
Absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head, which is we as Africans have a common and must have a common position. And this is part of what we hope to have as an outcome of the summit. Why? Because we face a lot of similar challenges across the development agenda. Some countries have bigger problems on one item or another, but collectively we have very similar challenges. Where we also are incredibly complementary is in our resources. For example, South Africa, with its current energy mix, stands to suffer a lot from an economic perspective because as we price carbon, and South Africa is heavily electrified with coal, their economy would be at risk. It's already at risk. They have huge unemployment among young people. But Mozambique and DRC can solve South Africa's problem because they have large rivers that can provide hydropower that can decarbonize South Africa's electricity system. But not only decarbonize it, but offer competitive electricity and in the process also help DRC and Mozambique develop. And so we have similar challenges, but we are also incredibly complementary in our resources. And so having that collective conversation, unlocking our strengths as from a regional perspective, is part of what I believe this summit will and aims to achieve, which is, yes, we have common challenges, but if we bring our strengths to the table, we unlock our collective challenges.
And we can also have common solutions. Let's take a break. It's 8:30. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Joseph Nganga. He is the CEO of the Africa Climate Summit. Kenya will be hosting African leaders for the first time to come together and have an African conversation about climate and the effects of climate change. This will be taking place next month in Nairobi. Registration closes tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, how does one register as we take this break?
Yes, so the website is acs.org, and you can register there between today and tomorrow. We close at noon tomorrow. We're already at 21,000 registrants, but there's still space for
There's room for more. acs.org. Go in there, register. It's free. Nothing. If you find anyone asking you for money, you're not in the right website. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption. Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's cloudy in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 24 today. Looking into Nyeri, highs of 22 and sunny conditions through the day. Nakuru is cloudy at 20 and that will be the high of 26 today. And we'll look into Eldoret where it's cloudy, going to highs of 20. Kisumu will see highs of 28. It'll be mostly cloudy for today. And looking into Kakamega, highs of 26, currently 23 and cloudy. We'll see sunny conditions in Mombasa at 25 currently, going to highs of 29. And in Malindi, it's sunny at 25 as well. We'll see highs of 30. Out in Kampala, we'll see highs of 29, mostly cloudy conditions. And Dar es Salaam will go to highs of 29 as well. It's cloudy currently at 24. Johannesburg at 10 degrees will be clear through today, going to highs of 21. And looking into Lagos is 25 and cloudy. Kinshasa is 23 and cloudy, going to highs of 29.
I have a brother. He was a pilot. He was laid off. He came to a policeman. He messed up.
He went from a pilot to a policeman.
Exactly.
He stole a jet.
Yeah.
In fact, you should be lucky he was not court-martialed.
The Spice Drive. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Indeed, it's all about hashtag Spice Drive, hashtag Quatch KWACH. 3 to 7 in the PM.
The Spice Drive, only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Damn.
All right, what do we see? Some traffic coming out of Westlands, and just as you get past the exit from the expressway, you'll get onto Chirom, and there's some movement there. Coming off of United Nations Avenue, the northern bypass, and then coming in towards Runda, there's traffic then around Kitisuru, then going towards the village market out onto Limuru Road. That's heavy. It's also heavy coming off the Thika Superhighway. Whatever was going on Kiambu Road is whittling out, and whittling away rather, and it'll get towards Muthaiga Square. There'll be a hold up as you're onto Pangani at the underpass as you try to get into the CBD. All right. We saw some movement on Lunga Lunga as well, going towards Likoni at the interchange and touching a little bit on the southern bypass. Apart from that, you should be able to get in and out of the city without too much of a headache. If you do, talk to us. Spice FM KE on X.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Continues with Joseph Ganga, CEO of Africa Climate Summit, CT.
You know, this discussion and who should pay for the damage is a topic that's really long overdue. Long overdue in this sense. Those who study these matters of climate change seem to be in agreement that of all the problems that are caused and who causes them, if you look at what we call low-income countries, and this continent is full of those countries, if literally not all of them, they contribute only 0.2% of that problem. But also when you talk of reparations and how it is that one should pay for it, there's an estimate that is necessary or required, something like $1.1 trillion. But the discussion about the benefits that accrue from that investment are actually not talked about. Now, the honest conversation surrounding whether it is what it is we use to power our nation or to create industries, whatever it is that we talk about that brings this about, these things are manufactured not here, definitely not here. Now, the reluctance to change whatever it is that is utilized, whatever it is that is meant to spur development, to make it sustainable, is something that seems to be an issue that those who do it have dragged their feet about, and yet this continent can. Now, when we ask for who should pay and how much they should pay, that discussion has been had and people have figured out, the figures have been worked out, they figured this amount. But it isn't to give us just so that we get it, but there is what it will do. And why am I saying this? If you look at, say, that sort of drought that we've had, the region of South Africa, you're talking about something that hadn't been seen over 300 years, okay? Now, most people don't know this, but Cape Town almost ran out of drinking water, literally, meaning because of the drought. And this discussion of climate change that we're talking about, it brought this about. You're talking about the cyclones in Malawi, the one this Brother Nganga here has mentioned. But it isn't only that. Look at what we keep discussing here. It is actually profound. And yet the solution that the West is looking for actually lies with us. But the dishonesty in the conversation is that they seem to want to control the narrative and to claim or to state that we are equally responsible, and yet we are actually not equally responsible. Yes. So it means there's a reluctance, not just for reparations, but to see the need to bring about change, which could actually bring enormous benefit to them more than it is to us in reality.
Okay.
Now, how does one ensure, because that long speech is intended to take us here, we will have this discussion. What are we doing different this time to make sure that apart from having the discussion, writing memorandum and agreeing, that we actually get these countries who are responsible for this problem to actually start forking out the money they should fork out? Because they are very reluctant to fork it out, and they give reasons why they shouldn't and what they should do, and they provide solutions which they haven't applied, because if they had applied those solutions, we wouldn't be having this discussion in the first place.
What's the strategy, Joseph?
It's a very good framing of the challenge. And if you think of the West, they have their own issues, absolutely. And as often happens in political economy, they prioritize what's important to their voters.
Yes.
And they forget that there's a regional, a global responsibility for what they've done. And so part of why this summit is so crucial is because Africa needs to start speaking with one voice. As long as we're fragmented, as long as each of us gets a bit of crumbles and we're happy with it, we're not going to engage them in a way that provides that level of push that will make them come to the table. And the reality is we have been fragmented. Our minerals are exported in the form of soil to China or wherever else and turned into batteries, and then we are sold those batteries at very high prices. We have bauxite, places like Sierra Leone, where they could really use the manufacturing and the jobs. Bauxite is shipped as soil again, processed, and then brought back to the continent. How does that happen? It happens because we are fragmented, because we don't work together, because we don't have a common voice. We have minerals that are energy transition minerals like cobalt and lithium. Again, the same issue is happening. But if we said, ladies and gentlemen, you want these resources, you need to come to the table. And these are the terms of engagement. These are the rules of engagement. If you don't engage us in this way, if you don't cover your responsibilities, if you don't invest in manufacturing in our part of the world, you're not getting these resources. It is why this summit is so important, because Africans must work together. I mean, look at the European Union. They make decisions as a collective, and we, for example, are going to have a real challenge with what they call CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which says that if you bring any product to the EU that has a certain carbon footprint, you will have such a huge tax on it that you will not be competitive, which means a lot of our exports from the continent won't have a market. Why are they able to do that? Because they're working as a collective. We need to do the same, and we can. We have very intelligent people on this continent. We have similar problems, as we said. We have the resources that can unlock the world challenge. When we work as a collective, that's how we can address that. And if we do that, then we can push them on this issue of compensation, loss and damage, in a way that actually can move the needle. If Kenya, for His Excellency's, for all his leadership and visibility and strength, if he works by himself, he'll only get so far.
$3 trillion per year is what we'll be needing as a continent from 2030. Globally. It's globally.
Yes.
From 2030.
Yes.
Who'll be paying this? Where will this money be coming from? What's the vision?
So, and we go back to His Excellency's narrative, which is what we have today towards climate finance is hardly enough. To get to those levels of financing, we must gather revenues from a global perspective. Where will that money come from? Things like maritime tax. Shipping is one of the largest emitters globally. We need ships all over the world, and we will continue to need them, but they need to pay a price for that pollution so that that price can go towards addressing climate change. Aviation tax is another. We need to tax aviation because it's a huge emitter as well. Fossil fuels at source. Why at source? So that you don't have the political issue where one country might say, if I tax if I apply additional taxes to my fuel in my country, I make my economy less competitive globally. But if you tax them at source, then all of us have an even playing ground. So those are the kinds of revenues that are independent of regional political interests, that are independent of local politics, that are driven by a common agenda, and are sourced from industries and sectors that by definition are huge polluters.
Joseph, even as we look at, let's come together in Africa, Ubuntu, and talk and get one voice, there are still fears that the West and other parts of the world that are outside Africa are involved and are influencing conversations that are going to be taking place next month. How do you allay those fears?
I have had those fears. We've seen them on social media. We've seen them on television. And I can, without the slightest doubt, very clearly state that the narrative of this summit is driven by His Excellency the President of Kenya in his capacity as chair of the African Heads of State and Government on climate change at the AU.
Okay.
But when you prepare when you have an event in your home, and you're having guests coming over, you have neighbors. Some of them make the best pilau, some of them make the best chapati, and so you invite them to help you prepare so that your guests have a good experience. So what His Excellency has done is invite people who have areas of expertise to strengthen the narrative. Remember, this is a global conversation. You must be credible with your data. The numbers I've thrown out cannot be cooked in some small corner somewhere. They must be credible, they must be global, and they're experts across all these topics. The challenge of climate change is it's so diverse and so broad that you need a large set of stakeholders to provide all the information you need to have a credible position. And so that perception comes from that.
Are these consultants also fact-checked?
It's a very good question.
Peer-reviewed and globally accepted that, the consultants that we're using to come up with, generate all these numbers and even look at the strategies and the strategies that we could use, that they are not playing somebody else's game?
It's another very good question, and the answer is yes. So by the time you have a consultant working with you on such a large and important and crucial agenda, you must be very thoughtful about who you work with, and you must be very thoughtful about what experience they have. And so, again, I would say that yes, these consultants have a long track record, whoever they are, and there are a wide variety of them. And may I add that it's not just consultants, it's organizations such as myself. Remember, I have been seconded from an organization that works in the climate and energy space. There are organizations that are scientific organizations, there are organizations that are political organizations. So all of them must be credible and they must have a track record, and we do have that.
It's interesting because it's been a while since we saw the sentiments in the nature that came from the president when he spoke about two things. Number one, climate financing, or financing in general, globally. And then number two, when he spoke about the nature of conferences that take place and really nothing comes out of them. And he was very bullish. And I liked that because it was about time somebody said it, because people were teeter-tottering about whether they were going to have that conversation or not. I mean, look, we had COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh last year. Before we close our and open our eyes, Dubai 28 is happening in a few months. The question is then what happens after that? And so here we are having an Africa summit. It's the president's baby. Many could say it is the manifestation of some of the things that he has said earlier in the year or even last year as pertains to climate. What's the guarantee? What's the surety that even as everybody comes together with the statistics and the numbers that we're looking at, with the resolve to do something from an African perspective, that it'll go beyond September 2023?
Very good question. The challenge of the climate conversation, again, is because it's so broad and it's a global conversation. It's easy to have a very, very large conference. I was at COP27 and navigation alone was a nightmare because you have so many attendees, so many conversations, and what comes out of it. So what we are doing with the Africa Climate Summit, and this is part of His Excellency's commitment, is we have 5 outcomes. One of them is a roadmap. So in the declaration, which we hope to be signing at the summit, based on African countries agreeing to it, has clear outcomes and clear steps on what we as Africans are committing to do. Alongside that, we have commitment frameworks. What are the international partners committing to? So one of the outcomes of the summit is a roadmap. We take what we as Africans said we will do, we take what the global community said they will do, and we have a way of following through to make sure that those commitments are being followed through. There'll be gathering at the UN General Assembly, there'll be gathering at COP, and there'll be another gathering in February at the AU, so that we are holding ourselves accountable to what we said we will do.
Brother Nganga.
Yes, please.
What?
Just
yes,
don't call him apostle.
No, brother.
Waiting for the choir.
Once we've had this conference as a continent, are we going to communicate to all the member states of the AU how each country will benefit and how they must benefit and how they must have a structure and a framework within which they can benefit? I say this because Kenya is already a leader, a global leader in renewable energy. There is no question about it. So when we're talking about it, we're talking about something we have a very clear idea about. We know. And then again, there is the need, if we are the lead country, to continue leading by example. And yes, there's monies that we keep saying should be paid. There are things we expect in terms of reparations. But then the conversation about the resources that you have, which you don't need to look for, being utilized to bring about these changes that you know you need. Because if they refuse to pay, the changes are still needed. What then do we do?
From Africa's perspective, as I said, we also have our own solutions. DRC and Mozambique, for example, can help South Africa decarbonize. But if we start from where you rightly state, which is that Kenya has over 90% renewable energy, and we look at what does that mean really, within that context, we're importing fossil fuel in terms of diesel, petrol, kerosene, and so on at around $600 million every month. If we went to electric vehicles, if we use our geothermal power, if we use our wind power that we already have, and we move to electric vehicles, we save ourselves a substantial amount of importation. And that's money that goes out of the door and doesn't come back. The foreign exchange rate alone is a huge impact on our economy. So we as a country, by taking those efforts, those steps, can actually start unlocking some of the challenges we face. I was mentioning the other day that someone was telling me they bought a Nissan Leaf, which is an electric vehicle, for about 1.2 million. Part of the challenge of Kenya is, of course, that we buy second-hand vehicles. But even with those second-hand vehicles, now we're beginning to see second-hand electric vehicles. And he bought one for 1.2 million shillings. And for the last, we're in August. So for the last 8 months, he has spent 15,000 shillings to fuel the vehicle for commuting back and forth. Why? Because his electricity bill is what he's paying for his vehicle. Now, if he was using petrol, your guess is as good as mine how much he would have spent. So not only is it good for the environment, it's good for us as a country, and it's good for our economy. And then I take that argument one step further and say, part of the reason our electricity price is so high is because we don't utilize our installed assets optimally. We use our power, if you look at our demand for electricity. The peak is from 6 p.m. when you get home and you're making dinner, you're taking a shower, your kids are doing homework, and you go to bed. And then it falls off a cliff. But all that asset to cover that peak is still invested in by the country and by you and I.
Yeah.
So we pay for power we are not using. What if we had electric vehicles and each of us plug it in before you go to bed? That power is being used and you're paying for it. So you're getting value out of it and you're paying for it, as opposed to paying for it and not getting value for it. So our overall per unit electricity price goes down. It makes our cost of electricity lower, and you know as well as I do the impacts of that on our economy, from productivity, from better manufacturing, from competitiveness, and so on. That is Kenya. You take that and you address it in the same way in a place like DRC. I could go on and on, but each country, by taking the right policy incentives, by making adjustments, can actually start leveraging their own assets to address climate change and development at the same time.
There's a small problem here, though. Every time these conversations are had, a commercial conversation creeps in. And I say creeps in because it doesn't hit you in the face, but it's always there. Like now when we talk about electrical vehicles, I'm asking who's pushing this agenda. I understand the benefits, clearly. There's no question about it. But because our lived experience is the commercial, the profit-driven agenda is always the hardest pushed. But they've learned with the time not to be in your face. So they go around it. It's like when you talk about medical research, the pharmaceutical companies are very vested in medical research. They need to know, they need to find out, because it's part and parcel of what they do. So then the stories of big pharma and so forth come into being. So the reality is there'll be profit-driven discussions. The question is, how do we navigate around this reality, because it is a reality, and ensure that we still benefit despite all these things?
Profit comes in multiple ways. There's financial profit, there's climate profit, there is quality of life profit. So assuming you're referring to the financial profit, there is, in fact, it's actually a very good discussion. Why don't we have electric vehicles ubiquitous in Kenya if my numbers are correct? Because there's a profit motive on the fossil fuel side. And so as a country, as individuals, you must be smart enough to run the numbers to understand, yes, there are profit motives by others, but what is in it for me? What are my best interests? And I think part of why we're having this summit on the continent, talking about our collective strengths, is exactly that. We have things here that, if we use them intelligently, can profit us in our best interests as opposed to others' interests.
Okay. If you look globally, the conversation on fossil fuel is, let's try and move away from fossil fuel. Now, those of us in the developing world are being told, in fact, stop even investing in extraction of fossil fuel. Don't even invest in power generation using fossil fuels. Where do you sit on that conversation?
Another very important conversation. And again, every country must look at its own situation and determine what's best for it in the context of a global climate agenda. Certain countries have fossil fuels. They must look at those fossil fuels as a resource that they have today to develop their economies. The challenge with that is, as we move to decarbonization, if they are heavily powered by fossil fuels and there's a carbon cost to their manufacturing, to their infrastructure, they are not going to be globally competitive. Secondly, as you look at the global conversation around emissions and the need to reduce them for all our sakes, remember, this is a global challenge, and we are all going to, in fact, Africa is already suffering enormously from it. So it's coming. So we must be prepared for it. So as a country, you might say, yeah, we have resources. We should be allowed to use our coal, our petrol to drive our development because the West did the same. And why should they have a free get out of jail card and we don't get to use our resources? The counter to that is you invest hundreds of millions of dollars in oil extraction, in refineries, that become stranded assets in 10 years. So you've actually compromised your own economy by thinking very short term. So what I would say to that is, one, every country must determine its path in the context of a global climate challenge. Two, where countries have resources and feel they need to use them, they absolutely should run the numbers, do the analysis, get the right advice for what is best for their situation so that their citizens stand to benefit from what they have, but do not strangle their citizens with borrowed money into capital investments that do not yield the returns that were planned for.
All right. What are the dates for the summit?
The summit is from the 4th to the 6th. We're very excited to be hosting it alongside Africa Climate Week. Africa Climate Week is a UNFCCC mandated event, which happens every year before COP. That will run concurrently and then continue into Friday. And most importantly, we have a pre-summit, which is a youth pre-summit. As you know, all this work we're doing, I have gray hairs. I'm not going to be around for a very long time. But the young people and their children and grandchildren stand to suffer the most, but also have the greatest opportunity if we turn this crisis into an opportunity. So the pre-summit is from the 1st to the 3rd.
Okay. And then the summit itself from the 4th.
Yes.
Is KICC going to be ready for this?
Yes, I have moved my office to KICC. KDF have been there working 24/7. His Excellency has visited a number of times. We have a 3 p.m. walkthrough every day to monitor progress. I think it's a symbol of this country's opportunity if we work towards a collective outcome. I think KICC in itself is a symbol of what can happen when we take an asset like KICC, we take our collective strengths as a country, and we work towards a very tight deadline. So yes, it's going to be not only ready, spectacular.
We'll look forward to it. Joseph, thank you very much for joining us, and all the best with the conference itself.
Thank you.
Register today on acs.org. It's free of charge. Registration closes by midday tomorrow. Joseph Nganga is the CEO of the Africa Climate Summit. He's been here. We've been talking about Kenya's spearheading the Africa Climate Talks. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto will today visit Baringo and Nyandarua counties, the president's choice, part of his plan to intensify the national development agenda. The head of state will launch the construction of Mailikumi Shamata Road in Daragwa, issue several title deeds and commission other roads. Yesterday, President William Ruto was in Nakuru where he hosted winners of the Kenya Music Festival 2023 and issued title deeds as well. He had earlier commissioned the construction of 220 housing units in Bahati. And Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu will this morning appear before MPs to shed light on the new university funding model. The National Assembly Education Committee has convened a meeting with the CS from 10 a.m. The meeting comes in the wake of fears that students may miss loans for being underage and hitches on the online application system that closes this Sunday on August 27th. In the new funding model that takes effect this September, when the 2022 Kenya Certificate of Education candidate admission begins, students will receive both government scholarships and loans depending on their level of need. The extremely needy students will receive 70% scholarships and 30% loans. The less needy ones, on the other hand, will receive 53% scholarships, 40% loans, and 7% from their households. The less needy students will be given 38% scholarship, 55% loans, and 7% from their households. The model is, however, facing opposition from legislators who are calling on the government to revert to the old model where learners paid as little as 16,000 shillings annually to enroll for degree courses. The formula has stirred heated debate, forcing National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula to direct Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah to seek a statement from the Ministry of Education. The members of Parliament demanded its halting, citing gaps in ensuring ensuring equity in access to education in the country. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission is now asking residents of Garissa County not to spread hate messages on social media. According to NCIC, intercommunal hostility in the area has been fueled by hate being spread on the internet. At a meeting with religious leaders in Garissa, NCIC commissioners admitted that they will take action against those found guilty of spreading hate through videos. Commissioner Donvas Makori has emphasized that the commission has started as such against those who incite residents, especially through social media.
Kukikuwa na kesi ambayo tunajua kuna jamaa ama kikundi ambayo inaongeza chechi ama matamshi ambayo aridhi, tunaweza request ile kidogo pull down, wanaweza zitoa kwanza. Sisi tukipeleleza wao itoe kwanza, isiende isikuwe viral na kueneza hiyo tochi ama taharuki na tahamaki katika jamii. Kwa hiyo ya kwanza ni tunajua tukipata hizo tunasema ziko tutumie sisi, tutaongea na hizi kampuni na mitandao za kijamii, watakuwa na pull down, alafu sisi tuendelea mapelelezi na tushika hawa watu, both bloggers ndio proxies. Unajua hao wanatumiwa pia, kuna wale wanatumia au si mtu anasema kibinafsi mimi na chochote kuna tumia, so utafanya hivyo alafu tutachukua hatua.
Religious leaders have revealed that the issue of land is at the heart of the conflict between communities in the area, further asking the government to restore stability in the area by solving the land problem.
Ardhi ile ambayo iko Mungu ameweka, watu wanauza kisha wanapigana kwa ajili ya mali hiyo, na watu wanatengeneza maleshi yao ambayo wanachunga hiyo ardhi juu ya hizo vitu. Kwa hivyo mimi naona kwa maoni yangu ardhi, shida ni ardhi, na kama serikali anaweza kuingilia kubanga mambo ya ardhi, shida yetu itakusha, kwa sababu watu hapa wa Somalia ambao wanaishi hapa ni jamii moja, dini moja, hakuna mambo mengine hapa.
The Ministry of Health is set to launch the first round of polio vaccination campaign targeting children aged 5 years in 4 counties. Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakamicha will roll out the 5-day drive starting today with an initial focus on Kiambu, Nairobi, Kajiado and Garissa counties with the aim of vaccinating approximately 1.8 million children. The exercise will end on the 28th. Cumulatively, the government will conduct 3 rounds of emergency polio vaccination campaigns across 10 counties with the highest risk of polio transmission, targeting 7.4 million children. And the fate of Wagner Private Mercenary Group founder Yevgeny Prigozhin was unclear Wednesday after his name was listed among passengers of a plane that crashed north of Moscow. Once an elusive figure was thrust into the spotlight through this group's close involvement in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, securing rare victories for the Kremlin. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asedo. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Jogo Road, a little bit of traffic getting out towards Landis. Landis will have bits and bobs of traffic going towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. Again, nothing too painful. It's not been too difficult dealing with traffic this morning. The Pangani underpass, the tunnel going then towards Wangari Maathai Way or towards Muranga Road, it'll have you in a chokehold at least for a little bit, but then you'll be fine after you go through that. James Gishero, traffic going along the drift, getting onto Wayaki Way, and Chiromo has some traffic as you're getting out towards the CBD. We're seeing some traffic coming off Ruaka through towards Whispers, United Nations Avenue, coming in from Kiti Suru, as well as the Red Hill Link Road. Some traffic there, here and there. All right, again, it's moving in most parts. Hopefully we can keep it just so. Let's talk Spice FM. KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
Welcome
the only
to the
way to
final
start
hour of
your
the
day.
Situation Room. We are still on Thursday, the 24th day of August 2023. Kenya's biggest conversation reminds you to prepare yourself for Saturday, because Saturday is a big day.
Yes, it is.
Why?
Have you gotten the clothes you're going to wear? Have you done like that? Choma Nangoma is happening this Saturday at the Rift Valley Sports Club. You ask yourself, Rift Valley Sports Club? Is it off Ngong Road? No, it is in Nakuru County. For the first time, Choma Nangoma, the 4th edition, is going out of Nairobi, and it's happening in Nakuru County. Lots of fun, partying and music with the very best of Kenya's musical artists lined up for your entertainment and pleasure. Thank you, Radio Maisha, doing it in style. Choma Nangoma, www.ticketsasa.com. Tickets are 800 shillings. Buy them now so that you can do what? Party on Saturday.
Kabisa. You're looking for a vehicle to take you down to Nakuru this weekend. You know, you can just buy a new car.
You can.
Or you can buy a...
just buy a new motor vehicle.
Quickly.
These things of, I don't know, OCT, can I borrow your car? Why?
Kuna nunua gari.
Kenda nunua gari bana. Kana gari yako. Go to Automark. Today, tomorrow, any day. Automark is on Popper Road in South Sea. We call it Bellevue. When you're heading towards the Kenya Bureau of Standards, right opposite the cabs gate is the gate to Automark. Go in there, see the kind of vehicles they have. This was the company formerly called Toyotsu, and it's a subsidiary of CFAO Motors, and they know a thing or two or three or four or 10 about vehicles. So they've got all those vehicles. They've got the fossil fuel powered vehicles, they've got the hybrid vehicles, and they've got e-vehicles. Okay, ile una plug hivi kwa socket pale, pin ndogo ina charge.
Kesho asubuhi
unaamka,
stima inapeleka gari.
Yeah. Couple of kilometers.
Yes.
Yeah. Just decide what kind of charger you want. Small pin,
big pin,
Type C.
Yes.
They have them.
Might take a minute, but all right.
That's what you do nothing for a month.
We're having energy conversations today. We just heard from Nganga, who was talking about the conference that's going to be taking place next month in Nairobi, the Africa Climate Summit, and he talked a lot about renewable energy and why we need to think about renewable energy. And actually, even before we start investing more and more into the fossils, we look at, okay, how are our renewables working? Andrew Amadi is our next guest in the Situation Room. He is the CEO of Kerea. The thing.
Otherwise known as Kerea. AKA Kerea.
Yes.
Kenya Renewable Energy Association, Kerea. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. Asante sana for joining us to talk about renewable energies, and our topic and what you actually proposed was something that is just raising the alarm bells. Kenya could be heading the South Africa route very soon. Which is this? What do they call them in South Africa? Load shedding. Power rationing. Rationing. Power rationing.
Load shedding.
We're going to power rationing soon, and that's why Andrew is here. Let's talk about renewable energies and how our energy mix is looking. Welcome to the show. CT Muga will give you the day's proverb.
Proverbs for the whole of this week, ending tomorrow, are from the country of Burkina Faso, formerly known as Upper Volta. But there it is a population of around 23 million people. They are not few.
23 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Now this is Siafu. When I say ant or ant, I'm not referring to someone's auntie.
Can you say ant or what?
Ant. I'm referring to Siafu. Mpate, jue.
Siafu.
Okay. Si auntie.
Okay.
Shangazi, nope.
Not the elephant's aunties.
No. Surrounding him.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Andrew, what do you make of this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
It's I'll connect it to energy. It's about planning. So the signs are there. Let's call it the data is in. The elephant is down. So of course the ants are anticipating that there's a work to be done. There's a meal. There's something that's going to be. Their services will be required. So it's just about planning and matching actions to the plan.
Yeah. So funeral committee for the elephant.
It's not pleasant, but we have to plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Introduce us to the Kenya Renewable Energy Association.
Yeah. So the Kenya Renewable Energy Association is an umbrella body that promotes the use of all types of renewable energy in Kenya. So KEREA, the thing, as now you have named it, I think that will stick better, was founded in 2002. It was actually from the technical committee that was developing standards for solar equipment. And they thought, you know what, we'll have the standard, but enforcement is going to be a thing of us doing what we agreed to. So they created the association, and that's how it started. And KEREA has worked a lot in the background. Most notable was a project started in 2006 called Lighting Kenya. And it grew in 2009. They brought in Ghana, and it became Lighting Africa. And it was then that Joseph, who just left the studio, and we formed a business, and we were bringing in solar lanterns, one of the first to do so. So this was the brainchild that came out of KEREA. And today, by today, I mean December 31st, 2022, Kenya is still the largest market for off-grid solar products in the world.
What?
Market meaning to sell from Kenya or to
sell
bring in
Kenya? To sell in Kenya. So if you go by category, you will find solar TVs. Kenya is the biggest market in the world for solar TVs. People have been going off-grid, using off-grid applications. We have integrated solar home systems into the national electrification strategy. So because of that, there's been a lot of appliance-driven demand. And last year, Kenya sold more appliances even than India or Nigeria, who are second and third.
So who are the members of the association again?
So the members of the association are companies that are involved in renewable energy. We are founding members such as Davis and Shatliff, Solar Chloride. We have got engineering companies that are involved in solar, such as WG-Stan, Area Finergy. We work with academia, so we've got lots of people who are there in their individual capacities, from universities, from government. So it's basically open to anybody who has an interest in promoting renewable energy.
You know, I have to ask this question because what you're saying is not just music to my ears. It's very soothing music to my ears and to my soul. Meaning, we are leading the whole globe, yani, world, Earth.
Yes. Tukona gold medal.
Tukona gold medal. Yes. It is us.
Yeah.
But these things that we lead in, do we produce them? Do we source them from somewhere? What's the mix?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what we are leading in is in the consumption of these appliances and these technologies. So a lot of them, for the most part, are imported whole or brought in as a kit that is assembled, such as a solar home system or a standalone system. For example, if you want to charge batteries for bikes, you can get that as a module. So we are basically in the consumption side. So we've been looking, there's an initiative called the Africa Renewable Energy Manufacturing Initiative, where we're looking at it from a value chain perspective and saying, we're starting to ask the questions, can we be able to produce some of these technologies or components of some of these technologies? So for example, for electric bikes, we can assemble them completely. We already have the capacity. We're just not putting in an engine, we're putting in a battery and a motor. So that's the first step. Then the second step is to look at the consumables. Can we be able to produce some of this? Can we produce bumpers? Yes, we can. We can be able to, that's a molding machine. It can be done. It can be, so do we have the raw materials for this kind of production? So in looking at it holistically, we are saying that in order for us to be sustainable, because we haven't even started to climb up the demand curve that is possible. When we start to climb up that demand curve, we will create such a huge need, and this will also become an opportunity.
Explain this demand curve, meaning? Because I thought we already climbed it. If we are the leading in this consumption,
yes,
that has to do with demand.
Yeah,
we make it possible for those who supply to bring it.
Yeah.
So essentially, that concept has been proved by us.
Yes.
There is need for it because we are consuming it and we keep consuming.
Yeah.
So this demand curve is...
So the demand curve is this. Let's look at Kenya's population. We are, call it 53 million people. Let's look at, we are number 27 in the world.
In terms of?
In terms of population.
We are?
27.
In the world?
In the world.
27th most populous nation.
27th most populous nation in the world.
In the world?
Yes.
If it was an exam, so we are 27 out of?
194, 196.
Okay.
27 being closer to 1 being the highest city.
We are top 30.
India.
We're in the top 30.
Well,
yes.
Out of 197.
Yeah.
We're doing very well here.
But now let's look at number 26 on the list is South Africa. They're just maybe 3 or 4 million more than us. Look at their electricity demand. It is 50,000 megawatts and it's not enough. Look at our peak electricity demand is 2,200 megawatts.
Sorry, again? Where? Please repeat those statistics.
So
again.
let's say South Africans 54 million.
50, yes.
Their peak electricity demand is?
Over 50,000.
Megawatts.
So
Kenya, 50 million. Our peak electricity demand is?
2,200.
So, wait. Their output is 54 million.
Demand.
No, their population is 54 million.
That's the population?
Yes.
And the megawatt thing?
Is the electricity demand at peak, what they're using.
How much
54?
they want, how much they need.
Is 54?
50,000.
50,000 megawatts. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when we're talking about that, then would you be able to connect and say 50,000 megawatts at peak demand, that is contributed to by industry largely? Because it's not your run-of-the-mill, put on the light and switch on the iron fridge kind of thing. Yeah. So we're saying that industry-wise, they're using a lot more because they're producing a lot more manufacturing, right?
Bingo. Exactly.
Okay.
So we are in consumption and we have been in consumption. And now we are consuming the maximum, almost. We are at over 80% connectivity to electricity. That's when you combine the grid and you combine the off-grid, mini-grid solar home systems. So we are at over 80%. People have electricity for lighting. At the very least, they can charge their mobile devices.
Okay.
So when we go to the next phase is production.
Okay.
So when we point this energy at production, then you start to see a very strong correlation between the peak demand and the per capita GDP.
Okay. Now, from where this conversation is going today, and we're saying, okay, there is a possibility that Kenya could go the South Africa way.
Yeah.
In terms of load shedding, maybe in some months. What essentially you're saying is that then Kenya also could get more into manufacturing and the industry capacity, that level would start to rise. Also, coupling with what you've said previously, that Kenya can do a lot of these things, getting into industry, fixing here, producing 1, 2, 3. But my question is, number one, why isn't that happening at that level? Why are we not seeing this production in terms of manufacturing and industry, one? And then capacity-wise, for this energy that's needed, it is available, is it not? So why are the two not meeting?
Yeah, that's the heart and soul of the work that we are doing currently, because we have been involved in the consumption phase where we were looking at access as the indicator. 75%, 100% is the target. We still talk about access. So now we've said, okay, wait a minute. Now that we have access, what can we do further with this electricity? And that is where now we say, can we point it towards production? Can we be able to be more predictable? At the same time, we are reacting to the effects of climate. So we're getting drought more often. So more drought means more sun, less water. So can we pump water from the ground, treat it, and use it for irrigation? Because that will solve the food security problem. How many boreholes can be done over what period of time? 750,000. How long can it take to be able to deploy? When you do that, then you have kick-started an entire or several value chains of production.
It may seem simplistic in questioning, but you've said, can we pump water from the ground and use it for irrigation? Can Kenya do that?
Yes, we can.
Why is it not happening?
It's happened. Well, there are barriers. Number one is that we are not aware that we can. That's the biggest problem.
Sorry.
Yes.
Really?
You know, we really need to go back here.
Okay.
I'm a bit slow.
Today?
Always, yes. When it comes to some of these things, my brain sort of like, there's a point at which it ceases. So I need to understand. We can't do what with water?
He said, we don't know that we can actually take water, pump water from the ground, right?
Use it for irrigation.
And use it for irrigation.
Using?
Solar. So there's drought, right? Water's dried up, but the sun is in plenty. Kenya does not know today that you can, or people, the practitioners in those areas, or anybody across the board, doesn't know.
Citizens of Kenya.
Doesn't
or
know
rather,
that you
they know the barrier. When you go to a person, everybody will say, okay, solar pumping water makes sense. Then you tell them, okay, how much is a pump? 110,000. That's the end of that conversation.
But you know, it doesn't actually even stop there. Because there's a commodity we seem to have in plenty. They're called aquifer. Yani, ile maji ambayo imekaa chini ni nyingi. Turkana is famous for it. Then there's this process it's called desalination.
Yeah.
From the little, I read very little, but the little that I've read tells me that you can use solar to do this very same thing.
Correct.
And we have so much solar, we don't know what to do with it. In fact, if you go to Turkana, there is so much sun. It's unbearably hot most times.
I did a calculation for the fun of it.
Yes.
If you used 1% of the area of Turkana County.
1%.
1%. Put it under solar panels. Generate electricity. Sell it at 12 shillings per unit. Compared to Kenya Power, you're buying at 32 shillings a unit. Sell it at 12 shillings per unit. You will make as much money as the oil in the ground in 1.5 years.
So why isn't it happening?
Barrier.
Again, what are these barriers?
So
costs, capital costs. Because you've got solar farms. We have a solar farm in Garissa. We have a solar farm in Eldoret. Why don't you have a solar farm in
Turkana?
What's missing is the application. It's not enough to generate electrons. You have to be pointing it at something. So our systems planning is kind of disjointed. So you have the National Treasury that's looking at finances, you have energy, you have environment, you have all these different units. But when you bring it down, if you follow energy, then you find that energy does not stop at the meter. It goes to the consumption, it goes to providing a service. So if you look at energy from a service perspective, then now you start to go into why this is not happening. And why it's not happening, again, it's the awareness that people don't know that, for example, that you don't have to buy a solar panel outright, that you can pay for the electricity. You can contract somebody and say, I will pay you 18 shillings per kilowatt hour. I don't put up any capital expense and I get electricity connected.
But there'll be a barrier, won't there?
There are always barriers.
Because if I'm creating electricity, let's say I have the means to, and I want to do exactly, essentially I become a retailer. Okay? There'll be a barrier.
Does the law allow me to do that?
Yes, it does. I can. It's even, if you look across the street, if you go anywhere here in industrial area, there are solar panels on all industries.
Yeah.
They haven't paid upfront. They've just worked on the differential between the cost of electricity during the day from Kenya Power versus the cost of solar on a tariff that a third party puts their money and says, I will wait for 20 years to get this. So there are independent
So there are
producers.
investors who are actually doing this.
There are
and it's
over
already
30 of them in
Kenya,
Nairobi.
who have come and installed this capacity.
Yeah.
And you agree on a tariff.
Yes.
And this is allowed.
Yes.
Is this what we call a mini grid, or is it different?
No, this is captive power.
It's captive power.
Yeah.
And of course, as the Association of Renewables, you encourage such to happen.
Yes.
So does it make money?
Yes, it does.
But after 20 years?
No. It depends on your financial structure. Number one, if you're in energy is a long game. Okay. So you think long-term investments. Energy is volumes, not margins. Mm-hmm. So you look at how to be able to create the kind of volume. Today, a solar panel and a smart meter can be deployed anywhere. And you have data. And you can aggregate and organize this data so that you can have visibility. So looking at it from the models and from what has been running for the last 14, actually from about 2011, that's when we reached grid parity with solar. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of data to be able to support this, that people are able to get back their full investment in about 5 to 7 years. 8 years, depending, of course, on at what cost did you buy and what tariff are you selling. Okay. So there is a return on investment. It's predictable. And it's over 18%.
Can we look at currently what's happening in the country? Because the conversation about alternative sources of power has been, there. And from what you're saying now, well, okay, it can be done, but, okay.
It is being done.
It is being done, but not to the capacity or not to the levels whereby we can say it's competing with your other source, right? Let's look at Kenya today. What is the main form of power that is being generated and consumed today? It's
geothermal.
It's geothermal, all right?
Yeah.
What would be a cheaper, more sustainable form of power in Kenya today?
Biomass. Sustainable biomass.
What is biomass?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What's biomass?
Bioenergy.
Well, what is it?
Energy that comes from biological beings. Charcoal, firewood, briquettes, biogas. That's bioenergy. Nature's storage. Energy comes from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Through photosynthesis, it's converted into carbon. That's bioenergy.
What is the conversation around this right now? And is it being done? Have we been able to test capacity and test levels as a more desirable form of energy for consumption or for generation?
Well, the conversation has been a difficult one to have, because number one is that we are conditioned to think of wood fuel as bioenergy. And then we look at wood fuel in Kenya and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we switch off that conversation. Number two is that globally, it's not a lot of the renewable energy technologies, investments, research have been pointed towards what is available in the global north. So this is a resource that's available in the global south. So it has not received the level of attention that, for example, solar, wind, hydro, or the conventional renewable energy technologies receive. So it becomes something that we know instinctively. We do it. I mean, we've cooked with bioenergy for years. But we don't see it as a business opportunity, number one, for investment. And then number two, we don't have the data, we don't have visibility. Our main source of energy, when you look at the pie chart of the country, is bioenergy. It's 67%, and that is a number that nobody can vouch for because it's based on estimates.
It could be higher, essentially, is what we are saying.
Yes.
It could be higher.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at solar and geothermal.
Yes.
Between the two, because those are the ones that take up the majority of the conversation, even if they don't take up the majority of what is available. Right?
Yeah.
Between the two, which is cheaper to produce and then, of course, to pay to consume?
Solar is cheaper. Solar is the cheapest. Well, actually, not solar. Biogas is the cheapest way to generate electricity.
So between geothermal and solar, solar is cheaper.
Yeah.
But geothermal takes up the bulk of what we use in the country today.
Yeah. Geothermal runs 24 hours. 98% of the time in the year. Solar is available, if we are lucky, for a maximum of about 2,890 hours a year.
How many days are those?
So those are, in terms of days, I think of it in terms of that would be about 120 days, full 24-hour days.
Oh, wow. So what happens the other days?
It's darkness, it's night, there's no sun.
So it's just about 4 months a year.
So, yeah. But it's still a window of production. Let me give an example. Russia and Ukraine, that's where our wheat comes from.
Yeah.
They only produce between May to August. And they produce enough to meet their own needs and to export to us, who have the production capacity for 12 months.
Say that again.
Take a break. 28 minutes to 10. It's a grey-haired Thursday in the Situation Room. So we started with a grey-haired man called Professor Ngure Wamochofi. He was here at 7. Then we had another grey-haired man called Joseph Nganga at 8. Now we have another grey-haired man, Andrew Amadi. He's the CEO of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association, having another renewable energy conversation, looking at the opportunities and looking at also what we are missing and what could lead us to that risk that you're saying as an association. We could head the South Africa route. We could have power rationing in less than 12 months' time. But no, you'll explain that after this break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardmedia.co.
All right, so we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi, 17. We'll go to highs of 27 and back down to lows of 13 today. Into a sunny Nakuru at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 12. It's partly sunny at 16 in Nyeri, highs of 24 and lows of 12. 12 will also be the low in a sunny Eldoret at 20, going to highs of 26. All right, it's 27 and cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 30. We'll see highs of 30 as well in a sunny Malindi at 27. It's 27 and sunny in Kisumu, 26 and sunny in Kakamega. Looking into a sunny Kampala at 25, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 29 as well in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 27. It's 14 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 25. And we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 25. Looking into Beijing, it's sunny at 8. It's sunny at 22, and we'll see cloudy conditions at 22 in Paris, heavy rain in London at 18, and it's cloudy at 21 in New York coming into Thursday, highs of 23. All right, since we're done with the traffic on Thursday, more or less, at least this morning, little bits here and there. Jago Road will just be there around that train station junction, coming out towards the City Stadium roundabout. You should be all right. And then Kiamburu, I thought we were done. Well, I think it's back. A little bit of that, at least, coming towards Muthaiga Square. We should be done with that in a short while, as well as what's coming off of Limuru Road. Through the morning, talk to us. Tweet us on X. Spice FM KE.
Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. A total of 9 steel companies have been fined 338.9 million shillings by the Competition Authority of Kenya for illegally increasing the cost of steel products. They include Corrugated Steel Limited, Tononoka Rolling Mills, Devki Steel Mills, and Doshi and Hardware Limited, among others. CAK argues that the above-mentioned companies engaged in cartel conduct whose effect was to increase the cost of homes and infrastructure by raising steel product prices. As a result, the cost of bars, pipes, beams, and sheets, which account for over 20% of the construction cost, went up. Kenya and the World Bank have invited applications from incubators, accelerators and tech bootcamp providers for possible funding and business mentorship. The partnership, through the Strengthening Kenya's Innovation Ecosystems, aims to benefit intermediaries that incubate and accelerate enterprises engaged in various value chains such as leather, livestock, garments and textiles, industrial production and crops. State Department for Industry Principal Secretary Juma Muhwana says enterprise ecosystem intermediaries are key priority areas as they play a vital role that should be well understood if Kenya is to nurture a robust startup enterprise ecosystem. KCB Group total assets grew 54% to 1.86 trillion shillings in the 6 months to June this year, taking the spot as East Africa's leading bank ahead of Equity Bank. Its balance sheet growth was driven by the consolidation of Trust Merchant Bank, which was acquired in December 2022, and an asset increase in customer deposits to 1.47 trillion shillings, underpinning customer confidence in the brand. In the half year to June 2022, the financial institutions' assets stood at 1.5 trillion shillings. Equity Bank now trails KCB Group after it reported 1.63 trillion shillings in total assets in the 6 months to June 2023. Tatu City and the China Africa Economic and Trade Chamber of Commerce have partnered to promote economic growth between Kenya and China. The organization, a non-profit social organization composed of Changsha-based enterprise, will enhance trade and cooperation between China and Africa through market access, among others. The agreement is also poised to strengthen bilateral ties between the two nations, opening doors for various investment opportunities. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM Business.
Talk Radio continues for the next 22 minutes. Andrew Amadi,
Spice up your...
The Kenya Renewable Energy Association, KEREA, is our guest this morning. Someone's telling me, Eric, you forgot to mention the grey-haired man on your left. Oh, yes. What a grey-haired man.
Man, today I've been in good company.
Sir?
Yes.
Yeah?
In fact, I'm feeling renewed.
Oh, really? So you might come skipping in tomorrow.
Look, let's start with the rest of the day.
Okay.
You'll have a good day today.
Today is a wonderful day.
Very good. Andrew, we're talking about the opportunities that you've said. Solar is huge. We have geothermal, huge. We've got wind, renewable, again, huge. But we all always think about investment coming from government, but we don't think about investment from the private sector and how we can also reduce our own power bills as individual, at household level, at domestic level, at local factory level. Please point us in that direction.
Yeah.
What is it that we can do too?
So I'd like to say energy efficiency comes before renewable energy. You cannot have affordable energy if it's not efficient. So at the individual level, you look at your bill, then I'm sure people ask, so where's all this coming from? Where's this? A lot of the times we delegate the blame. We delegate the blame to Kenya Power and the government, and that's it. But we don't look at ourselves and say, what am I consuming that I could either reduce or I could get from a different source at a cheaper cost? So the problem we have with energy is that all energy is sold in different units, and only one of them is an energy unit. That's kilowatt hours for electricity or tokens or units, whatever you want to call them. Petrol is sold in liters. LPG is sold in kilograms. Biogas is sold in meters cubed. Solar is sold in watts. Wind in watts. So you cannot be able to reconcile and say, hey, this is expensive from an informed perspective. So that's one of the things we've done, is to publish the energy price index, which converts all types of energy at the point of sale to the same units, so that you can see a 6 meter cubed biogas system is actually the equivalent of 0.1 shillings per kilowatt hour of the energy that it will produce over its lifetime. And then if I use biogas for cooking, then my cost of energy is about 8 shillings per kilowatt hour. LPG is 19 shillings per kilowatt hour. Kenya Power is 32 shillings per kilowatt hour. So when you have this kind of understanding, and unfortunately this is something that is privy to those who are certified energy managers, that's what we do. So when you have this understanding, then you can be able to now say, you know what, if I'm cooking these chips and this is 33 shillings, and you told me that biogas is 8 shillings only, so that would be like 60% cost reduction. Then yes, it's possible. We've been doing this for industry since 2006 after the KAM and the UNDP GEF project for energy efficiency. And today it's available. This is information that should be available to the individual end user. So in the renewable energy sector, a lot of this has already been factored in at design. So let's take a solar home system that will provide you with lighting for a 2-bedroomed house.
Okay.
It will cost you outright maybe 20,000 shillings. Or you can pay on a plan with a deposit of 1,000 shillings and then pay 40 shillings for the next 400 days or whatever the number of days comes to. If you go to connect to the grid for a 2-bedroomed house, you are right next to the road. There's a transformer. You will get a quotation of, if you are lucky, 500,000 shillings.
Yep.
You have bought outright the lighting that you require with 20,000 shillings. So that is the efficiency cost of energy.
If you installed this solar system to power your house,
yes,
would it do everything else?
No, that's lighting. So let's go step by step.
Okay.
So if you want to look at it and say, where's my money going? I'll tell you for free. It's that instant shower. That is the biggest cost, mostly for depending on the type of house. If you're going to a bigger, high-end, maybe it's the jacuzzi, but it's going to be heating and cooling.
So the instant shower, biggest consumer.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
Maybe refrigerator, because it runs 24 hours.
Okay.
After that, the Wi-Fi modem. It actually consumes more than the TV.
That kind of thing.
Because it's running throughout, consuming maybe 18, 20 watts.
Okay.
The TV goes on
Per
and off.
what?
Sorry?
Per what? I'm running home to switch
the
off
router.
Per 24 hours?
Yes, so if it's 15 watts, then that's in 1 hour, it will be 15 watt hours. Which is, I think, okay, I promised not to speak in jargon, but that's like energy is a function of power and time.
Yes.
So that's why you have your kilowatt hours.
Yes.
So depending on how much power you're consuming over what period of time,
that's how your cost.
And that's why the instant shower is the most consuming, because it consumes a lot of power.
Okay. So lighting is coming.
Light is very little. Light you can run on solar 100%.
So if I paid this 20,000 shillings upfront to take care of this lighting bill, I'm taking care of
and charging your phone.
I'm taking care of the smallest part of my electricity bill.
Yeah.
So if I start looking at it, okay, so I'll still need to go to that transformer guy to give me that quotation for 500,000
No,
shillings.
before you go there, I'll ask you, what else do you want? Do you want to power a fridge?
Yeah, I
do you
want
need
everything.
fridge? So let's go step by step.
I want everything.
If you want everything,
I want to not pay 500,000 shillings to that guy.
So go get a standalone fridge. That's 110,000. It will stand alone. It will never be connected to anything, and it will remain cool for 20 years.
What do you mean?
It's a standalone fridge. So
It's
you're
a
not
fridge.
You're not plugging
Solar
it
fridge.
in. It's a solar
It doesn't
fridge.
plug into anything.
Okay.
Standalone means what?
You can put it
It
in
has
the
no
field
wires.
with no connection. It will remain cool for 20 years.
Wait. Wait. Okay. But that initial 20,000 I have to have so that I have this solar thing.
No, 20,000 is the lighting.
It was just for lighting. So he's taking us now, if you want all these other things.
If you want to be fully
what
loaded,
else? So
everything.
first buy that standalone. Are they available in this country?
They're available. Kenya is the largest market. Again, those are the systems that are
you
being
said
sold.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So standalone fridge, no need for electricity, no need for it. Just stands alone and cools your things.
Yeah, but it's getting energy to cool it from,
but not from power.
Solar.
Yeah. So there's a
It has a
20,000.
panel.
There's a 20,000 coverage or it
Not
comes its
20.
own.
This is different.
This is
This is
different.
110,000, out of which 51% is taxes.
Come on.
The taxes are more than the cost of the solar panels.
No, that's okay. The fuel guys brought us up to speed on these costs.
We know how that
Yeah, we
So
know how that thing
110k, you have this fridge.
You have the fridge.
Okay.
And it
now
comes
let's
with
power
it.
this other thing. Let's power the router and the TV and the instant. Okay, let's remove the instant because you'll tell me put solar water heating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chargers, router.
Yeah.
Basically,
So electronics.
Give me a
Yes.
solution because you gave us, it's a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So give me this renewable, cheap, affordable energy solution for this 2-bedroom house that will now give me this independence
Yeah.
of depending on this big grid that's very expensive and unreliable.
Yeah. So you go into the solar home system space, and today they are standardized. You go to any major distributor, Davis and Shatliff, Chloride Solar, Kenya, you'll find packages that will tell you this package. I have one. I've been using it since 2020 when we were working from home. I decided I'll have a solar system to power my electronics. So you can package it based on, you give the comfort level. You want this thing available 24 hours. Okay, say fine. So we know how much the laptop uses. So we can be able to compute and give you what we call a period of autonomy. That means if the sun doesn't show up for whatever reason, maybe an eclipse, I don't know, apocalypse, whatever the reason, if the sun doesn't show up, you will have power for...
on that side.
Yes. You will have power for, say, 48 hours.
Right.
And we did this for healthcare, for a maternal and newborn unit, because we said that incubator cannot go off.
Critical.
So it has 48 hours of autonomy. Then you say, okay, maybe the sun doesn't come. It's not likely, but maybe it doesn't come, or it's not enough. Then on your last line of defense, you have a generator. That if this doesn't happen, then the generator will run. It will just power the battery. So it's not powering and consuming a lot of energy. It's just topping up so that these things continue to run.
Okay.
So you have a hierarchy of
So-
interventions.
So the infrastructure needed to run this or to power this thing literally is what would be expensive, but it is a one-off kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so you're buying your standalone fridge, you're setting up your lighting in the house, you're doing 1, 2, 3 other things.
Yeah.
If you had 100 shillings to spend for solar units, let's call them that.
Yeah.
So it's trying to simplify this thing, right?
Yeah.
And you had 100 shillings that you're spending on your tokens that you use now.
Yeah.
How much would you use? Compare the two now between what we're currently using and if it was solar powered. Where are we now in terms of this 100 shillings?
Okay. It's a good question because I just answered this question 2 months ago. That let's say that 100 shillings will buy you the connection one time and 1 year of electricity tokens. Let's just say because you used 100 shillings. I would have gone with 100,000, but it's okay. So if it will buy you 1 year plus the connection, the cost of solar to buy you 20 years of electricity, including changing the battery after 10 years.
Voila.
So the cost of solar
is 20 times cheaper.
The same as that 100 unit. That will buy you connection plus 1 year of electricity.
Okay.
So that's how expensive it is. And you'd have gotten 20 years of electricity
from solar.
From solar.
How about that?
But then there are investors in the country who actually even help you with this upfront costs.
Yeah.
Where you can now pay over time.
Yes.
And these are now the models that are in the market.
Yeah.
How do those ones work?
So how they work is that it's initially a technical problem that you've described what you want, and then it becomes a financial problem that you're told this total thing will cost you 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So you don't have the 2.5 million, but you have 50,000 a month that you can be able to pay the disposable income.
Yeah.
So what the investor does is they say that I will put my money down. So they will take their investment, put it down, and say, if you are to take a loan from the bank at, say, 13% interest, and you pay over 5 years, then you'll have paid the total cost of this product. So if they take that risk, they take that loan, then through your repayments, they are now able to pay back that loan, and then over and above that, depending on how it is structured. If you structure it that they will just pay for the electricity, then they know that I have paid for it in the first 5 years, so I'm going to earn profit for the next 15 years. So it becomes a way of getting literal passive income.
Right.
So that's the model that they go for. There are also those who want to sell equipment. So they go for margins. You buy it, they sell it through a financial institution. The financial institution buys that cost. They know when you're buying a solar panel, you know this, I have prepaid for electricity for the next 20 years, and this is my cost per unit. Then I say, okay, who needs this electricity? Let me stick it on your roof. I put a meter, you pay me back. So I'm able to wait because I know I can repay it in 3 to 5 years, but I also know that I can get an extended loan at a lower interest over a longer period of time. And all that means is that I'll just make more margins.
I'm curious, how did we end up in this lead position where we are number one everywhere we are looking? We are number one in this renewable energy space. How did we get there?
Was it by accident or by design?
Yes.
It was by design. It was actually by design, because what happened is in 2000 we experienced the worst drought.
Yes.
Power was reliant on hydro. So that was the year since independence that Kenya's economy actually shrunk in that year. That's the direct impact of electricity on production. So we learned and we said, okay, we don't have the oil resources at that time. What do we have that we can use? So since 1940s, we've been looking at geothermal. The first geothermal in Olkaria exploration was in the 50s. 1981, we were generating power with geothermal. So we looked and said, we have still got a huge capacity. Why don't we shift our base load, that's the electricity that is running throughout, from hydro to geothermal that is more stable. So that was done. That you had your Olkaria 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now we have a base load that is geothermal.
Right.
So at least at that level, there was a response. So in this same momentum, and again, the same year, 2002, after that drought, we are looking at alternative sources because generators are expensive. So that's how we said, okay, if we are to grow a market, we need standards. So that's how the Technical Standards Committee on Solar Panels and the Kenya Renewable Energy Association is created. So now we are aware that there's need for developing this renewable energy. And because we did not have an abundance of other options, hydro, we are a water scarce country, so we now had to leverage on what it is that we have. And that's how we have now another price, the largest wind farm in Africa, which is now producing, not majority, at least 17% of the electricity now is coming from wind. So it was the need and the geographical advantage that wind is not by accident that it is incident here at that high level. The solar, we are right on the equator. Geothermal, we are on the Rift Valley. So we have all these geographical advantages that are working in our favor.
So actually, technocrats in government designed this and said, let's go.
Yeah.
And policymakers said, yes, let's go.
Yes.
And in a short span of 10, 15 years, we had turned this thing upside down from a point where we were only relying on hydro to a point where our base is actually coming from
wind and geothermal.
Wind and geothermal. See? This country is not so bad, Bana.
No wonder people steal money, it never gets finished.
Allah. Now, let's come to that topic. We run a risk of power rationing.
Yeah.
Please explain.
So, I've been tracking the peak demand because for me, it's an indicator. It's also a market because you're selling renewable energy. You need to know what's the available, realizable market. So, tracking peak demand for over the last, since maybe 2010, and looking at the supply opportunities. So for a period of time, we had a peak demand of about 1,600, and we had supply installed capacity of over 3,300 megawatts. So we thought we are safe. We said we have excess power. We have all of these agreements on capacity charge because of that excess power thing. But then come 2019, 2020, and we're having 2-3 years of successive drought, and we wipe out 80% of the hydro.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing there's a huge gap deficit that we're not at 3,200, we are actually at 2,330 peak demand, supply.
Peak supply.
That's available on the grid. At the same time, we are retiring some of the thermal power plants.
Yeah.
We're not replacing them immediately with alternatives.
Yeah.
So as this is happening, there's the attrition and the demand is growing very, very consistently. at about 110, 120 megawatts a year. So in 2022, we had already hit 2200 megawatts peak demand. Available supply, 2330. It includes hydro. If it doesn't rain, and we don't know for sure if it would be, and not just rain, but rain enough.
Sufficient rainfall.
Sufficient rainfall over a period of time. If it's too fast, it will all go to the sea. It has to be time to store. Then we can be able to prop up the hydro. But at the same time, we are saying that during the day, if we shifted the day demand from the grid,
the main grid,
to use solar that's available everywhere, then we save on the water for the hydro that can then be used, say, in the evening when we need all of this.
Right.
So come evening, 7 p.m., instant showers, lights are coming on, especially instant showers. The moment you put it on, each one is about 4 to 5 kilowatts. And there are about 1 million people within that time coming on. You have created an instant demand of 500 megawatts. Yeah. All the thermal power stations are on. They're not coming on to power industries. They're coming on to power showers.
Instant showers.
So if you shifted and you heated your water during the day and it's stored in a container that is well insulated, you'll have hot water at night. And it's cheaper. The cost, again, 32 shillings instant shower per kilowatt hour. Cost of solar, 5 shillings per kilowatt hour.
Same instant shower.
Same temperature.
Same shower.
Same temperature,
Same shower,
volume of
rather.
water.
Yeah.
That's
For the same body.
Level. Yes.
Wow.
What? So if we don't do something, we are likely to have a problem?
Yeah, we already have a problem. I was in the rural areas last week. The power supply in Nairobi, it's consistent because we've had a centralized system where everything is pointed to Nairobi, including the single largest power plant, Lake Turkana Wind. It's not supplied in Marsabit. It's not supplied in Turkana.
Comes to Suswa.
Comes to Suswa,
Nairobi.
Comes to Nairobi. So Nairobi gets a good supply. Western Kenya was connected through the old system with the hydros through Nyahururu. It doesn't have the capacity to meet today's demands because those were 1980s demands. So there's a connection between Bomet to Kisumu transmission that can now link all carrier to Western Kenya. So you do that, which is ongoing. That peak demand, now you have unlocked suppressed demand.
Right. The KPLC MD mentioned that line.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
And I remember you asking Moroni going through from one corner to the other.
The longest possible route
to get there.
I mean, the distance they talk about is short, but KPLC go there, then come back, then go further back,
because
and then go back.
Previous projects were not.
Again, the
Andrew,
principle
we
is
thank you very much for
efficiency.
joining us. Our time is up. Andrew Amadi will be back again. He's the CEO of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association. You will be a regular on this show. Asante sana for joining us today. Have a lovely one. Thank you for tuning in.